I had already failed many times, but as soon as I got home, everyone was waiting for me. They had kidnapped and tied up my family, and I was supposed to be the victim. The bullies tried to hit me with bats, but my punch was so strong that it crushed all of them. The first one who came at me had his face smashed in, while the boss was terrified, wondering how a boy could be this strong. On his knees, the man begs for just one more month. In response, the aggressor states that debts must be paid, even if it means selling an organ or two. He then squeezes the debtor's shoulder, saying that maybe a little pain will make him understand how he feels. Just then the woman starts using her phone, and the aggressor notices the movement suspiciously. He asks if she's calling the police and says it would be useless. The screen shows a message from their son, and the reply being typed told him not to come home. Without hesitation, the man suggests that instead of this mess, they should settle things directly with the couple's son. His henchmen then grab the couple, who beg for their son to be left alone. Losing patience, the leader orders his men to shut them up so they don't make any noise. As the woman is tied up, the boss comments that he wouldn't want their son to get scared. From his hiding spot, he announces the boy has arrived outside. A young student approaches the front door inside. One of the men covers the mother's mouth as she begs them to stop. A moment later, the young man enters the hallway, where several men are waiting in ambush. Casually, he announces he's home while taking off his shoes. Without warning, one of the henchmen lunges from behind with a baseball bat. The blow then strikes the back of the boy's head with full force. Restrained and gagged, the mother watches the scene unfold. However, the student turns and grabs the attacker's arm. In a swift move, he smashes the man's face with the same bat. The henchman's body collapses to the floor in front of the boss and the young man's parents. In silence, the leader stares at his subordinate's body lying on the ground. Confused, he questions what the hell is happening. With effort, the student slowly gets up as his body recovers from the attack. Annoyed, the boss orders his men to get him and kill him. Without a second thought, a man lunges with a pipe, but the young man dodges the blow. He then counterattacks with a direct punch to the aggressor's abdomen, the student's hand shattering the man's ribs. The impact throws the henchman's head back. Right after, another tries a high kick, but the student catches his foot in midair. In response, he twists the man's leg and hits him with a side kick. From behind, another attacker strikes with a chair still. That same man is thrown against the wall next to the boss. Terrified, the leader watches his men being defeated all around him, and wonders what's going on. With no other choice, he pulls out a knife and runs toward the boy's father. Without hesitating, the boss grabs the young man's father, yelling they'll see how tough he is, but a closed iron flies in his direction. In a direct hit, the student smashes the iron into the leader's face, making him drop the knife. The young man then slams the object against the attacker's head, breaking through the wall. With his head stuck through the concrete, the leader begs for help, screaming for someone to call 911. Still, he keeps pleading for help, while the student just watches amidst the bodies of his henchmen. Afterward, the young man kneels and starts untying his parents. Coldly, he states that if they didn't want him to fight, they shouldn't have been so poor in the first place. Losing his strength, Xianu collapses to the floor and his mother screams his name. In the emergency room, doctors and nurses rush to treat the numerous injured people crying out for help nearby. A man in a suit is talking on the phone at the reception desk. Curious, he asks the woman beside him about the commotion. She explains that a kid beat up 10 loan sharks who were assaulting his father. She then adds that he's just a high school student in one of the rooms. The injured boss orders them to find and kill the boy, but a subordinate calms him down, saying the victim was taken to the same hospital. Confidently, he claims to have sent the Great Bear after the kid, assuring him he's already dead. Alert, the man in the suit overhears the name the Great Bear. Without wasting time, he asks the receptionist which room the boy is in, and she tells him it's 2102. Hurrying, he runs down the hall, stating that the Great Bear is a main event fighter candidate, and that this is a good chance to test his worth. Arriving at Xian Kang's room door, he admits to feeling sorry for the unlucky kid who got mixed up in this inside of the room. Xianu comes face to face with a gigantic man. Surprise, the man can't believe they called him there just to beat up a kid like him. Indifferently, he says, "It's nothing personal, just business." With a slight smirk, the giant comments that Xianu is an interesting little boy. He notices that the young man doesn't show the slightest sign of fear. Determined to show the boy what fear is, the giant raises his arm to strike, but Xianu lunges forward first with a straight punch. Still, his opponent hits him right after, throwing him to the ground from a distance. The observer concludes the kid didn't stand a chance. With contempt, the attacker says he doesn't care about the boy's craziness, claiming that being fearless won't get him anywhere. Even so, Xianu gets up, and the giant questions if he's already on his feet. Without backing down, the student replies that he can keep talking because his punches are nothing. Annoyed, the giant retorts that all this talk will just make killing him more fun. and then he charges. Outside, the man in the suit senses the murderous intent, and decides he must stop him. In the room, the giant throws a punch, but Xianu dodges under the blow, and counters with a spinning kick to his opponent's face. Surprised, the man in the suit remembers that no one has ever managed to take down the great bear before. As the giant falls to his knees, he reflects that this shouldn't be happening so easily, since the fighter has one of the strongest physiques in the country. Outraged, the giant asks if the boy really thought a student's kick could knock him out. In response, Xianu delivers an axe kick straight to his adversary's head. Stunned, the man in the suit can't believe what he's seeing. Hitting in no room, the student unleashes a series of punches to the fallen opponent's face. Still, the giant manages to grab Xianu mid-attack. Frustrated, he regrets having to use his finishing move on a mere student outside. The observer recognizes the move as the Bone Crusher, and decides he has to stop him. Screaming, the great bear declares this is what the boy deserves. Immediately, the man runs toward the door, yelling for him to stop. Inside the room, the giant applies the lock, twisting Xianu's body. Then he feels something is wrong. As he used all his strength against all odds, Sayonara starts to get up from the hold. Confused, the attacker asks how he can still move, and why his bones are still intact. Without answering right away, the young man grabs the giant's face and warns that this time, he'll crush him to pieces. In desperation, the giant struggles but can't apply any pressure, asking himself why his grip has no effect. In a direct response, the student headbutts him in the face. Rumbling, the giant claims the boy's skull must be made of steel. Hitting no ground, Sao punches him again, slammed his opponent's face into the glass floor without stopping. Sayono continues to punch the fallen giant repeatedly. Just then, the man in the suit enters the room and orders him to stop. As his opponent is already unconscious, approaching cautiously, he asks the young man to calm down. He then explains that a bigger mess will be much harder to clean up. Soon after, he makes a call, reporting a patient in room 202 with a head injury from a car accident, requesting immediate assistance. Confused, Sayano asks who he is and if he's on the giant's side. Without hesitation, the man denies it, stating that he'd actually rather be on the young man's side, if possible. In disbelief, the student asks what the hell he's talking about. At that moment, a team in hazmat suits enters the room. One of the members confirms the patient's identity and assures them they'll take care of everything. The man in the suit then asks if it's possible to keep the great bear unconscious for now, and the medical team confirms it will be done. Still suspicious, Sayano asks who all these people are. Only the man offers him a card, saying that if he works for his boss, he can have anything he wants. Furthermore, he states that all he needs to do is fight for him. Without a second thought, the student crumples the card and tells the man to get lost. He then throws the paper in the trash, making it clear he has no interest in fighting for money. From a distance, the man watches the young man walk away and mutters to himself that his mind will surely change. In a bathroom, Silno splashes water on his face. Facing the mirror, he stares at his own reflection and laments that even though his life is a mess, he still wants to keep his promise to never become a thug. Just then, his father walks in and asks what he's doing there. He then asks where he thinks he's going in his condition. Unable to hold back his frustration, the question arises of whose fault it is that he's in this situation. Bitterly, the young man recalls his father claiming to be a boxing champion with offers from teams, and confronts him about why they're drowning in debt. He continues asking if it was too humiliating for a former champion to open a small neighborhood boxing gym. Finally, Silno asks if his father's pride is more important than his own suffering wife. Without answering, the man just tells him to be quiet and not to leave the hospital. Before he goes alone, the student watches the door close and admits to himself that he hates his father. He then collapses to the floor, holding his head, wondering if he just hasn't slept enough. He quickly concludes the pain isn't from exhaustion, but from his father, whom he hates. He can't stand seeing him get hurt all the time just so they can survive. He also can't stand watching his father kneel before the bully's parents whenever there's a fight, because he doesn't want to depend on him in any way. After all, he doesn't want his father to think he's done his part while he remains trapped in this hell. As a teenager, he can't even get a job on a fishing boat to turn things around and pay the daily expenses. When a man tried to recruit him, he simply sent him away, claiming to be busy. To make matters worse, those same bullies dug an even deeper hole for him, and as much as he hates his father, he can't leave because of his mother. Feeling his own life is a pit of despair. Confused, he wonders if he passed out again and why he's in a different ward. Sitting on the bed, he grabs his phone to check how long he's been unconscious. The message says it's time to tell him everything and asks him to meet tonight. Shocked, Siano wonders what his father has been hiding. He then remembers his mother and starts to worry about her. Without wasting time, he quickly calls her, asking if she's okay. On the other end, His mother answers and tells him not to come home as the thugs are still waiting for them. She explains that he's safe in a different room under a fake name. Worried, Siano asks about her, and she quickly replies that she's at a motel near a police station and has to go before hanging up. She asks him not to leave the hospital for now and to take care. Overcome with guilt, he starts to blame himself for everything, repeating to himself that if he hadn't fought back, none of this would have happened. His mind made up, he concludes he needs to find his mother and runs toward the room's exit. On the way, his phone rings with a call from his father. When he answers, an unknown voice asks if he has missed her. Kang's son, confused, he asks who's calling on the other end. The man informs him it's an emergency as Mr. Kang fell from a building and is unconscious at a construction site. His father is seen lying on the ground surrounded by other workers. Back at the hospital, Siano watches his father lying in bed, completely bandaged and hooked up to several machines. A doctor explains that the necessary surgery is complex and will cost over 100 million won, in addition to requiring years of rehabilitation. The news leaves him completely devastated, defeated. He sits in a corner of the room, asking himself what he should do. Desperate, he questions how he'll ever raise that much money. At that moment, the image of him throwing away the business card he received earlier flashes through his mind. He then remembers the card left in the trash can. With that, he realizes he has to go back to that room and runs toward the door of room 202, rushing. He enters the room looking for the trash can. However, when he picks it up, he realizes the business card is gone. Powerless, he falls to his knees beside the trash can, blaming only himself through tears. Siano apologizes for being so useless. In despair, he tells himself he doesn't deserve to live. Just then, a voice asks if he happens to be looking for this. As the man in the suit appears, holding the card calmly, he asks if he's had a change of heart. Prying, Siano asks how much he can make if he works for him. In response, the man states that if he wins, he'll earn at least 10 billion, adding that he doesn't even need to win the tournament to get rich and become popular. Calmly, the man in the suit hands over a document, asking him to read it carefully before signing. Confused, Siano Kang asks what this so-called combat wing is. The explanation is direct. It's a secret fighting tournament where competitors use hospital-provided substances to gain physical abilities. Hearing this, the young man refuses the offer, stating that he doesn't do drugs. In response, the box on the table is open, revealing several vials lined up inside. Without rushing, one is picked up. He explains they aren't common drugs. They can give incredible strength, even to an old man on the verge of death. Still, he makes it clear that using the substances is not mandatory. Seizing the moment, Siano asks who he really is. The man introduces himself as ManhwaCapped, a recruiter for a VIP in the combat wing. Ignoring the young man's reaction, ManhwaCapped continues to explain how they will work together. He says that upon entering the tournament, it's possible to choose a sponsor if you make it into the top 20. Next comes the proposal. Sian can choose a VIP client as a sponsor, and they'll work together to win the tournament. After thinking it over, the young man agrees as long as he gets the money up front, but he quickly adds that this is almost impossible, since payment only comes from the tournament itself. Annoyed, Siano asks why he should work with someone under these conditions. Only the man tells him to relax, reminding him that he still needs money for his father's surgery and a safe place to stay. Surprised, the young man asks how he knows all of that. Without hesitation, ManhwaCapped offers to cover his father's medical expenses and provide housing while he fights for his boss. He adds that just like Siano, they don't have many options either. At that moment, the phone rings. The young man answers and starts talking to his mother. He quickly tells her he'll call back, taking advantage of the pause. The recruiter adds that they will also protect him from the loan sharks. In the middle of asking how he could trust them, Sono's phone rings again. He looks at the screen and sees it's his mother. Answering the call, he asks what's going on. His mother tells him that his father's surgery has already been paid for, and that some bodyguards have shown up because of him. Then ManhwaCapped informs him that the safe place is ready, so there's no need to worry about her. Hearing this, Siano tells his mother he hired the bodyguards and asks her to do exactly as they say, promising he'll be there soon. The call ends, and a question immediately comes to mind. What is really at stake for the prize to be 10 billion won? In response, ManhwaCapped explains that the 10 billion is just the starting amount. He adds that depending on how much is bet on him, the winnings can be even greater, mentioning champions who have taken home over 15 billion. In disbelief, the young man says that's impossible, but the man in front of him assures him it's not. He then considers that in reality, it might not even be enough, given everything the fighters risk. That's because most participants either die or are permanently disabled during the competition. In the last tournament, only 10 managed to walk away unscathed. He continues explaining that the first order of business is to create an alibi for the participant's death. Hearing this, Xianu Kang repeats the words, questioning the idea of an alibi for his own death. Incredulously, he says it makes no sense for the tournament to be a secret when so many people die. To this, Min Sok Kim clarifies that the secret only exists because everyone involved ends up dead. Pointing to the contract, he says that the first thing to be done after signing is to use the hospital, a place where it's easy to fabricate someone's cause of death. To create the alibi, he explains they need the person to be filmed by a camera. They could purchase or do something that places them at a specific location. Without backing down, Sao Nu Kang confronts him, asking what would happen if he decided to tell the police everything. Hanli Mensio Kim states, that wouldn't be a problem. It's easy to make him look like an addict or someone unstable. And no one would believe a student with no proof. With a slight smile, he adds that it doesn't even matter, as Xian will be declared dead before he even gets the chance to report it. Finally, he says that this is precisely the advantage of having a hospital host the tournaments. Reinforcing his point, the recruiter makes it clear that the final decision belongs to Xianam. Then the contract is placed on the table once more, along with the question of whether he's still willing to sign. In a calm tone, Min Sok Kim begins to say that he could take a few days to think it over before he can finish. Xianu signs the contract, demanding only that they keep their word. Immediately, a wide smile spreads across Min Sok Kim's face. In that instant, a nurse approaches from behind with a syringe and injects a sedative into his neck. In a reflex, he grabs her arm, asking what's happening without changing his tone. The recruiter explains there's no need to worry. They're just sedating him to take him to the arena. Then comes the warning they will only take care of his parents. As long as he is competing in the tournament, his vision begins to darken as his mind struggles to understand the situation. As he opens his eyes, the first question that comes to mind is whether he's already dead. Upon waking completely, he sees a person in a strange suit and wonders where he's being taken. Soon after, his body is wheeled at high speed down a hallway toward a door. When they stop, he asks the figure accompanying him where he is. In response, the masked figure orders him to be silent, stating that everything will soon become clear. Finally, he hears the words that seal the moment, "Welcome to Hell." Inside a large commercial building at the Hyunsung Group headquarters, a meeting is underway. Attentive director Yuan Cha, the group's second son, listens to his subordinate's report calmly. He states that he understands the boy defeated the Great Bear. Still looking at a photo of Xianu Kang, he questions if they really want to recruit him as their main fighter. Without hesitation, then Seo Kim confirms the decision. Even knowing the director's brother, the vice president, might mock them for it. Next, Yuan Cha asks for the reason behind such a choice. In response, the subordinate explains that his brother is obsessed with the combat wing, and they need to appear weak to lure him into a bet. Thoughtfully, the director asks if he truly believes that boy is the key to defeating his own brother. With conviction, Min Seo Kim reports that he examined Xianu's body after he survived the Great Bear's strike. He then states that what he found was something extraordinary. Curious, Aincha asks what exactly was discovered. Meanwhile, Xianu awakens in an unknown place with a foot coming toward him. A man tries to step on him, but one of the armed guards orders him to back away. Awkwardly, the man raises his hands and says it was just a joke. Just then, a drone approaches and confirms the player is conscious. Making Xionu wonder what that means. Confused, he kneels and questions where he is and why he's wearing a school uniform. Soon after, the drone announces the start of the first round of random fights. In a neutral tone, the device explains this phase will serve as a qualifier to decide who enters the main battle arena. Then a machine opens, revealing a syringe. Finally, the drone informs them that each player will receive a random drug to enhance one ability. It also announces that the betting table for Vipt is officially open. Faced with this, Xianu's opponent takes the applicator from the machine and follows the instructions to administer the substance. At that moment, Xianu remembers he has already broken his promise to graduate but remains determined to keep his vow of never using drugs. Suddenly, he turns upon hearing a scream. The syringe falls to the floor. Now covered in blood, the other man celebrates, yelling that he received a power drug. Attentively, Xian watches the scene and wonders what is happening to the man. Without warning, the opponent rushes forward and attacks with a kick. The impact sends Xian flying into the wall, which shatters from the force of the blow. As he recovers, Xian realizes the man is completely different and wonders if the drug strengthened his muscles. Soon after, the drone announces that Chehuan has successfully enhanced his power. As he celebrates, Sang Wok is on his side again. In an ecstatic tone, he laments not being able to go out and teach a lesson to everyone who called him scrawny. He then turns to Xiano calm and asks how he should kill him. Without hesitation, Xiano lands a quick punch to his face. Irritated, Xiaohan asks if this is a joke, and if he really thinks he's better paying attention to the details. Xiano notices his opponent's reaction speed remains the same. With that, he rushes forward to close the distance between them. However, Xiaohan lands a powerful punch that hits him square on. With his face bleeding, Xiano can barely react to the speed of the attacks. In an effort, he dodges the next blow with a backflip. Still, Chu lands a powerful punch to his chest, sending him flying in midair. He grabs him and claims he can defeat him with brute force alone. Without mercy, Xiaohan slams him head first into the ground. Excited, he celebrates, saying how fun it is to crush him. He then leaps high into the air, yelling that he's the strongest now. Filled with hatred, he vows to knock all the idiots off their pedestals. Finally, he delivers a powerful knee strike directly to Xiaono's head. Brutally, he stomps on Xiano Kang's chest, shattering the ground around him even more. In a cruel tone, he states that if he's going to crush something, it might as well be his rib cage. In a flashback, Min Sa-kim recalls examining the boy's body after he survived the Great Bear's attack. On that occasion, Wei found proved to be extraordinarily confused. Ainsha questions him, unable to understand firmly. Min Sa-kim explains that Xiano was 10 times stronger than an ordinary human. Furthermore, in terms of bone density, he could no longer be considered human, being completely off any chart. Back in the present, Sao Nu grabs Chihwan's leg. Seizing the opening, he lands a direct kick to his opponent's chin. Surprised, Chihwan wonders how he survived without using any drugs. Concluding that perhaps he hasn't gotten used to his own strength yet, lying on the ground, Sao Nu notices his opponent is slower, likely because his stamina wasn't enhanced. With this in mind, he believes he can hit his face if he avoids being grabbed. Using quick jabs instead of heavy blows, without hesitation he rushes toward Xiaohan, prepared. His opponent yells that he's only come back for another beating. With agility, Xiano dodges the blow, which hits nothing but air. He follows up by connecting a direct punch to his opponent's face. Keeping the rhythm, he dodges an attempt to grab him. Right after, he lands another clean hit on his opponent's face. Giving no room, he continues with a series of fast, precise punches. Under the impact, Xiaohan falls to the ground, completely knocked out. Seeing the opening, Xiano prepares to deliver the final blow. Suddenly, his opponent recovers and grabs his arms tightly. With a strange smile, Xiaohan reveals he let the punches land on purpose to capture him. Suspicious, Xian questions this, but the response comes as a taunt, asking if he really thought he wouldn't have allowed him to get that close. Then he asks if Xian knows why kangaroos pin their opponent's arms. Before attacking with his arms immobilized, Xiao delivers a violent headbutt. However, the impact ends up knocking out Xiaohan himself, who falls unconscious to the ground. Still conscious, he tries to crawl across the floor, muttering that he can't get up. Frustrated, he punches the ground and wonders why his own body won't obey him. Desperate, he screams that it's impossible to lose to someone who didn't use any drugs. Looking at the other syringe, he claims a single dose wasn't enough to unleash his full talent. Crawling across the floor, he reaches the machine and grabs the second syringe. Realizing the danger, Sao Nu moves forward, understanding he must stop him from using the drug that was meant for him. Without a second thought, the young man leaps toward him to try and stop him. Still, Xiaohan administers the second injection, and the drone announces his stamina has been enhanced right after he strikes Xiano from behind, sending him flying. His body hits the ground, and his head is immediately grabbed by his opponent. Furious, Xiao lifts him into the air, yelling and asking who called him a thug. He then jumps and slams him head first into the ground with all his might. Even so, Kai-hun shoos the drone away, stating that he's not finished yet. Standing over Sao Nu's body, he declares he's going to do something different, as he's tired of always getting beaten up. He then locks the young man in a chokehold from behind, saying this is exactly what it feels like. The pressure increases as he states that he knows stubborn rats like him need to be finished off once and for all. As his strength fades, Xianu starts to lose consciousness and calls out for his father. Xianu Kang and Xiaohan remain motionless on the shattered ground. At that moment, the drone announces the game has ended with the death of a player. Staring at his laptop screen, Min Chao watches the scene and questions what happened to that participant. Min Sa-kim casually explains it was all due to an overdose. He then adds that the survival rate for using 2 types of drugs is less than 0.5. Before this, Xiaohan had already successfully used the power drug. However, when he injected the stamina booster meant for Xiaonan, death became inevitable. Hearing this, Ayang-cha concludes the opponent took his own life, and admits that Seonu is a lucky kid. In response, Min-sok Kim argues that calling it simple luck would be irrational, considering the unusual nature of the young man's body. Uyen retorts that it might just mean stronger bones, and reminds him that there are far stronger monsters still in the tournament. At this, Minchuk explains that current drugs can enhance muscles, organs and hormones, but there's one exception. According to him, stronger bones cannot be obtained with these substances, which points to a special reason behind it. After some thought, Ion decides they will test his usefulness on the main stage, and asks what's next on the kid's schedule. Min-sok Kim replies that since Seonu passed the drug-related test round, he will proceed to the next phase. Before that, however, he will receive treatment for his injuries, and only then will he fight again. From then on, he will face all the monsters who may have acquired unknown powers. In the combat wards treatment room, Seonu sits in silence with his head bowed. He remains motionless for a few moments. In his thoughts, he wonders if Chil really died because of him, since he only meant to knock him out. He then remembers that he was the one who was about to die. Just a moment ago, his father's voice echoes in his mind, telling him to get a grip. Then comes the memory that he is the only one who can save his family. A short while later, the drone announces that the winners of the previous round must proceed to the lobby. One of the medics informs him that the guide will explain everything he needs to know and that he must follow all instructions. Finally, a warning comes not to try anything, as the guides are armed with a lethal weapon. The drone then flies toward a passageway, and Seonu starts to follow it. Along the way, he follows it down a corridor that opens into something resembling a cave. Faced with this scene, he wonders what kind of place this is. He gradually deduces that the entire underground structure was built to prevent any escape attempts. As he moves forward, he regrets not even being able to call his mother. He then remembers the deal that keeps his parents safe, and understands he must survive at all costs. Reflecting, he realizes this wasn't the fight he imagined outside. He believed he was the only monster here. However, even a simple neighborhood bully displays absurd strength. With that, he begins to wonder how many other monsters exist in this place. At that moment, the drone announces that the player has arrived, and the lobby will now open. One of the doors opens, causing him to turn and watch dozens of other drones fly out from the same location. Then one of them reports that all players have now entered the lobby. Shortly after, the game is officially announced to begin. With a total of 124 participants, everyone is instructed to gather in front of the screen for the briefing to begin. Looking around, Seonu sizes up the other competitors and defines them as monsters. He quickly realizes they are completely different from the opponent he faced in the first round. Given this, he decides to keep a low profile until the official match begins, avoiding any unnecessary injuries. A moment later, a huge man approaches and asks how he got here, suggesting he could play with him. Uncomfortable, Seonu regrets that his uniform draws so much attention, and hopes the briefing starts soon. Meanwhile, two competitors comment that he's only here because his opponent took both drugs and died. One of them adds that he's still wearing a school uniform, saying the rich probably wanted to see something tragic happen. The other claims to be bored and wonders if he shouldn't have some fun with the kid before he can move forward. His companion stops him, saying someone has already claimed him. Hearing his name, Seonu turns around. A large man demands an answer, asking again if he wants to play. Faced with silence, the aggressor's hand grabs his head, stating there's no choice but to kill him. In that instant, Seonu understands that to survive against these people, he'll need to take things to a whole new level, and just like that, he dodges the Great Bear's attack. Seonu swiftly dodges the hand coming at him. Confused, Big Bear asks what's going on as Mr. Kane steps between them without hesitating. He extends his arm, telling them to stop right there. In response, his wrist is grabbed tightly. Then aggressive voice demands to know who he is. Mr. Kane firmly states that Seonu is just a kid. He braces himself for the inevitable confrontation. The large man scoffs, asking if he really thinks he can take him on with just one enhanced arm. He continues to taunt, asking if you do all this for a useless kid trying to get away. Seonu ignores the commotion and backs up a few steps. Then Big Bear declares he's going to kill him, and that he can die for the kid. Unable to just watch anymore, Seonu rushes toward them. Suddenly, an attack hits Big Bear head-on. Surprised, Seonu stares at what just happened. The body hits the floor, and a drone announces that the briefing will begin shortly, prohibiting attacks outside the designated time. It adds that any violation will result in immediate execution. Hearing this, Sanara wonders how they can just kill someone without warning, and if it's even possible to get out of here alive. A moment later, he turns at a loud noise. On the screen, a figure appears. welcoming all the survivors. He gets straight to the point, explaining that the drug test round had no eliminations. But from now on losers will be eliminated. He clarifies that elimination means being physically unable to fight. Despite the risks, he says they are all there for the 10 billion won prize. With that announcement, the crowd erupts in celebration silently. Sao reflects that with that money, his family could finally have a decent life. Next, the figure informs them that only one person can claim the grand prize. However, he adds that anyone who makes it to the top 16 alive will receive 5 of the total amount bet by the VIPs. Excited, one of the competitors cheers, saying he'll take both the prize and the betting money. The host adds that each player will have a personal broadcast channel and a guide who will act as their camera. He says the VIPs will watch the channels of the players they plan to bet on. In short, he states that the more attention they get, the more money they can earn, hoping they'll attract many VIPs. He then announces that 5-person dorms are now available, and they are free to choose their roommates. Everyone is instructed to go to their rooms, with the assurance that any further questions will be answered by their guides. As they walk, 2 competitors comment that they need to find the big shots to attract the VIPs, since rooming with a kid won't earn them anything. Hearing this, Xian realizes it won't be easy to find a room. Just then Mr. King approaches and tells him not to worry. He confidently states that he will protect him until the official tournament begins. Silently, Xian looks back. He notices a blonde man walking away, wondering if what he heard could be true. Then Mr. King points to a room they can enter without a fight and invites him to come along. Infused, Xiao wonders why he would share a room with someone everyone else is avoiding, especially after getting hurt because of him. Not understanding the man's intentions, he concludes that the situation will be dangerous regardless of which room he chooses. Faced with his hesitation, the man asks if he's coming or not, and the answer comes quickly: "I'm coming." From a distance, the same 2 men from before watch the scene, commenting that they'll surely be at the bottom of the viewership rankings. One of them explains he chose a room next to the players he believes are the most popular, just to guarantee some screen time. Agreeing, his companion says, "Those muscular guys will attract VIPs like flies." In the room next door, 3 extremely muscular men sit in silence. The blonde man Xianu saw earlier approaches the door to that room. As soon as he enters, he closes the door behind him. Walking up to one of the men, he comments that the seat looks nice. Then he tells him to move over. A bit annoyed, one of the huge guys stands up, questioning him for closing the door before the cameras were in. Lunging forward to attack, he asks if he's betting to die without giving him a chance. The blonde man lands a direct hit first. The muscular man falls to the floor defeated. Only the blonde man asks who else would like to greet him. Then he just tells them to stay quiet like that. Just then Ninsuhan, a 19-year-old Kali Arnis practitioner, states that there's someone else he'd like to greet. Inside a moving car, Unincha gets a tip. A source claims the vice president is going back to work with the former champion Cam. Hearing this, he complains that no one else will be able to partner with the champion now. The only option left is just a high school student. Min Seo Kin Men explains that if Siono makes it to the top 16, a new opportunity to drug him will arise. According to him, because of Siona's already developed physique, he would get the maximum effect from the enhancement. His bones are 10 times stronger than normal, plus after taking the drug, he would become the greatest of all time. Bin remarks they'll need to keep him close until then, but he's worried about potential interest from other VIPs. To reassure him, Mensok guarantees that won't be a problem for now. He then reveals that the 5 people sharing a room with Xiano had the lowest viewership in the last round. Back in the room, Mr. Hang notes that getting viewers here is going to be a real challenge. He explains that most of the audience will follow the title contenders, however their group has the only woman in the tournament, Amanda Grok, ranked 23rd. An underrated capoeira and jiu-jitsu fighter. There's also Menho Kim, a smaller build boxer, ranked 25th. Last but not least, there's Menin, ranked 28th, who spends his time screaming about his own elbow. Keeping up this weird behavior, he asks for help to touch his elbow while Xianu just watches in silence. Noticing the drone, Mr. King comments that the guides are there to film. Still, he says they'll need to grab some attention if they want to make any money from the bets. Then he shows off his enhanced arm. Right after, he starts doing one-arm handstand push-ups, counting each rep out loud. Sao Nu comments that he doesn't think that's going to work. Just then Amanda Grok stands up. She points at the floor and cracks it with just one finger. Then she lifts her entire body, balancing on that same finger. Watching this, Xianu wonders how someone can lift their own weight with just one finger as Mr. King and Amanda continue their exercises side by side. Xianhua asks them to wait a moment. Minho Kim approaches and says that showing off strength is for idiots. Right after he dashes across the room at incredible speed. Surprised, Xianhua asks himself how anyone can be that fast on the floor. Minhwa celebrates by screaming that he did it, and that he's the best of all. While the other three continue to show off their skills, he finally manages to lick his own elbow. Xianhua watches the whole scene, finding it all impressive and ridiculous at the same time. The screen announces that the tournament matchups for the top 124 are finally set. At this, Xianhua and his roommates watch the displayed information intently. Among the announcements, his opponent's name appears. A man named Kai. Min-cha then asks if that guy is really as strong as they say. In response, Min-seok Kim states that ever since his days competing in Lethwei, Kai has never lost a single fight. Curious, Ian asks what exactly Lethwei is. Min-seok explains it's a Burmese combat sport similar to Muay Thai, but with differences that make it even more brutal and dangerous. Unconvinced, Ian retorts that Muay Thai is already risky enough, since it allows the use of elbows and knees. Still, Min-seok clarifies that in Lethwei, there are additional allowances in this fighting style. The athletes don't use gloves, and headbutts are completely allowed. According to him, a blow with the forehead bone can cause fatal injuries, which is why most combat sports ban this type of attack. However, Min-seok points out that this isn't the most dangerous aspect of the sport. What truly makes Lethwei lethal is the permission to strike the back of the neck and the spine, which can result in paralysis or even death. That's why Min-seok concludes Kai has the most real combat experience, since he continued to fight for a gang after his sports career ended. Intrigued, Diami asks about this gang. While Min-seok speculates that Ji wasn't content with just fighting inside the ring, he then says that Kai started challenging famous fighters on the streets until he caught the attention of the criminal group. Ian then questions if Xianhua will be able to face someone like that. Honestly, Min-seok replies that he has the same doubt. He points out that so far, Xianhua has only faced people with no martial arts training whatsoever. Now, however, his opponent is Kai, a 28-year-old Lethwei fighter. The recovery pod opens slowly as he sits up. Xianhua Kang asks how long he's been asleep, then he wonders why his body feels so light. He realizes it's not just a feeling when he flexes his arm, and it occurs to him that this isn't the first time he's experienced this. Memory takes him back to the fight against the Great Bear. He recalls waking up the same way after that battle. Standing up, he comments that it feels like he's gotten stronger from another pot. Min-seok Kim tells him not to be surprised. According to him, muscles pushed to their limit without excessive damage tend to recover stronger than before. He adds that Xianhua had probably never tested his own strength to that extent. At that moment, the young man realizes he was already at his limit when fighting the Great Bear. Still, Min-seok points out that his recovery is abnormally fast, and asks if he used any drugs to speed up the healing. Changing the subject, Xianhua says he's wanted to ask a question since yesterday. He then asks why Min-seok is helping him, even at the risk of getting injured. In response, Min-seok Kim begins to explain. He reveals that the young man reminds him of his own son. If he had been a better father, he believes his son wouldn't have fallen into such massive debt with loan sharks. Hearing this, Xianhua asks if that's why he's in the tournament, and the answer confirms he needs to pay off the debt so his family can get back to normal. Min-seok continues, saying that seeing him there all alone immediately reminded him of the son he neglected for so long. For that reason, he couldn't just stand by and watch. Xianhua then tells him to stop wasting his time on this. He adds that if he really wants to be a good father, he should get out of here and become one. None of this will matter if he ends up dying in this place. Annoyed, Min-seok puts him in a headlock and says he talks as if helping him is the end of the world. Suddenly, a voice exclaims that this can't be right. Minhwa stares at the large screen and wonders why he isn't fighting in the main arena. As a drone flies by, he shouts that he's a fighter who can touch his own elbow with his tongue. Min-seok explains that only fights with a large number of viewers take place in the main arena, while the others will be held in the same location as the previous round. Following that line of thought, he concludes that their group is the one with the smallest audience. He continues, saying that the fact everyone except Menon is scheduled for the main arena means something important. This indicates their opponents are some of the strongest and most popular fighters in the tournament. Xianhua Kang replies that in that case, the situation is even better for them. Confused, and so Kim turns and asks what he means by better. The young man explains that this is the perfect chance to draw attention to their dorm. The older man just mutters that he must be completely insane. Just then Menon appears and states that they won't just have regular viewers in the main arena. He continues, revealing that 16 VIPs will be there in person, all among the most powerful people in the world. Hearing this, Xianhua wonders if the so-called talent scout will be there too. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Three cars park in front of a large warehouse at night. Lee and Cha gets out of one of the vehicles and questions why he's in this filthy place. Since they were told they were going to the main arena, Mr. King explains that no one but the organizers knows the combat wing's location, so they likely chose a discreet meeting point. He adds that he noticed that at some point, someone besides them started following Sao No's channel. At this, Uyan asks if he thinks they're being investigated. A voice replies that there must be a misunderstanding. On the upper floor, Song Yingqian, the youngest daughter of the Hasan group, watches the whole scene. She claims she's only there because she found Xianu interesting. Uyan demands to know what she's doing there, following him like a rat, especially after being kicked out of the company not too long ago. Mr. Kane comments that his younger sister seems extremely interested in everything he does. Furious, Uyan shouts that she's not his sister, but just the daughter of a mistress. Sung Yun walks down the stairs and says that's a bit cruel, since she didn't even go to school so she could help her two brothers with the company. Still, she says that thanks to him, she ended up finding this interesting place and thanks him for it. Uyan replies that he doesn't know what she's planning, but she'd better disappear right now. Suddenly a luxury car drives into the warehouse. Surprising the three of them, two people in protective suits get out of the vehicle and announce they will escort them to the main arena. Sun Yungxia removes her blindfold. The young woman asks where she is. Before her lies a massive circular combat arena. The security guard explains that below is the main arena, and she is in one of the 16 VIP rooms. Satisfied, Sung Yun says she's finally arrived. She adds that this place is her brother's true playground. In another room, Ayancha comments that the space is much larger than he imagined. Mr. King informs him that as soon as the current fight ends, the match for room 10 will begin. Suddenly an explosion erupts on the screen in front of them. The broadcast shows Min Se-han pinning an opponent against a destroyed wall. Surprised, Ian asks what kind of monster that is. Mr. King identifies him as Min Se-han and notes that there seems to be another fighter around Xianu's age. The man next to him asks if another high school student is participating. However, Mr. King clarifies that he dropped out, so technically he's no longer a student. Still, he finds it strange that two monsters like them came from the same school. He then reveals that Minso is from the same high school as Siono. With Minso Han's victory, a drone announces that the matches between rooms 9 and 20 have ended, and the showdowns between rooms 10 and 3 are now beginning. The participants are then ordered to enter the arena. Min-sok Kim realizes the scale of the combat is completely different from the first round. Then the drone informs everyone to wait except for the first player. Minho King Minho takes his position at the arena entrance and prepares himself as he moves forward. The drone asks the fighters whose matches have ended to leave the area, and Minso Han departs as he passes Minho. Minso runs a hand through his hair. Watching the scene, Minsok hopes this doesn't make Minho nervous. Suddenly a rock hits the wall next to Seo and Yu Kang, who wonders where it came from. Minho looks back and claims he saw everything. He recalls Minso pretending to fix his hair while simultaneously throwing the rock at Xianu. Xianu just stares at the point of impact. Minho finds it impressive, as most people wouldn't have even noticed something moving that fast. He then approaches and calls out to Minso Han. Minso turns and asks if the student on his team is really that arrogant. Minho simply replies saying he doesn't think so. Not accepting the answer, the other guy questions what that means. He then adds that it can't be true. In that instant, Minho takes a fighting stance. Watching the scene, Minsok Kim asks what he thinks he's doing. Amanda Groch states that this didn't just happen suddenly. According to her, Minho is sensitive enough to notice even the smallest changes, so a murderous intent like that wouldn't go unnoticed. Minso then releases a strange energy from his body. He then turns and starts to walk away confused. Minho wonders if he freaked out and just imagined it all, though he's sure that he really had. At that moment, a strange figure appears behind him. Minho Kim begins to question if this is all he's capable of now, and how he can get revenge being so weak. A voice asks what he's staring at, making him turn around quickly. Before him, his opponent Pais, a wrestler, enters the arena in one of the private boxes. Yu Jingo, president of the Snugon Hotel, questions the choice of Pais. Since wrestling doesn't involve striking techniques, the assistant explains that no matter how effective a strike it is, it becomes useless the moment a wrestler manages to immobilize their opponent. After grabbing their prey, they can apply various techniques like throws and joint locks, which few can withstand. For this reason, many wrestlers excel in mixed martial arts, as it's one of the most essential training bases. After all, someone can hold their own using just their fists, but dealing with an opponent who attacks with their entire body is something else entirely. The assistant adds that this becomes even more decisive when there's such a large size difference. A drone hovers in the air and announces that both players are ready. Soon after the match between ManhwaCapped and Pace is declared open. With disdain, Pace asks if Manhwa is a boxing rookie, stating he looks like one of those weaklings who have never fought without gloves. In a taunting tone, he adds that he almost feels sorry for being his first opponent. Without responding, Manhwa advances and lands a punch right in his opponent's eye. Pace immediately recoils, bringing a hand to his injured eye calmly. Manhwa asks who said he was a weakling. Trying to recover, Pace starts to focus with his remaining eye. Still, he can't keep up with his opponent's movements, who quickly appears in his blind spot. Another blow hits his face. The sequence continues with another clean punch. Trying to react, Pace lunges forward to grab him. However, Manhwa dodges the attack. He then counterattacks with several blows to his opponent's face and chest. The other eye is also hit, and Manhwa delivers one final blow. Watching the scene, ManhwaCapped wonders if the fight is already ending. Amanda Croc, however, replies that it's not over yet. She explains that Pace has started blocking the attacks. Indeed, he manages to defend the following blows. Faced with this, Manhwa backs off for a brief moment. Soon after, his opponent lunges forward again to try and grab him. Manhwa manages to dodge backward at the last second. Confused, he wonders what just happened, because even as he attacked, he saw something strange. Pace also seems surprised and wonders how he managed to do that. He then remembers that after starting to lose vision in his other eye, his hair stood on end as if he'd been shocked. Thus he finally understands what he's feeling. Confidently, Pace states that he'll just close his eyes completely, not understanding why Manhwa watches his opponent close his eyes. Even without knowing what he's planning, he decides to advance convinced. He states that the fight is already won anyway. However, Pace manages to grab his fist in midair. The spectators watch the scene in complete silence. Manhwa realizes he needs to move left to escape. As he tries to retreat, he feels another hand already blocking him with force. Pace lifts him into the air, preparing for a throw. He then slams his body violently onto the arena floor. ManhwaCapped exclaims that it was a suplex. Yusungo comments that the fighter seems to have gotten stronger. After injuring his eye, the assistant explains that the loss of vision activated the effects of the sensory enhancement drug. Approaching, Pace says Manhwa should thank him because without his help, he would have never discovered this power. Suddenly, one of Manhwa's fingers twitches. The next instant, a punch lands directly on Pace's face. Surprised, Yusungo wonders what he will do now that he's lost vision in both eyes. ManhwaCapped can't believe Manhwa survived that attack and claims that if he keeps up the pressure, he can still win. However, the assistant clarifies that this won't be possible, as he is still unconscious. Leaving the president shocked, Manhwa remains on the ground, his fists still raised. Amanda Groch states that he needs to get up immediately. She adds that it needs to happen before Pace can find him. Pace gets up, claiming he's completely blind now. A brand new sensation runs through his entire body, and he starts moving around the arena confused. He begins to wonder what all these sensations are. He soon realizes he can smell everything around him, from the floor to the smallest grains of sand. On top of it, he can clearly hear his opponent's breathing. He also feels the air pressure change with his every move. Excited, Pace declares that he can now even sense what's behind him. In that moment, he understands just how insane the drug he took is. Thrilled, he admits that while he wanted a strength-focused substance, he got something even better, making him more powerful by the minute. As a sort of gift to whoever put him in this state, he decides he will finish off ManhwaCapped once and for all. Without hesitation, he charges toward his opponent lying on the ground. Manhwa realizes his body isn't responding as it should, and calls out for his brother. The memory of his brother lying on the floor floods his mind. At that moment, he remembers his promise to find him no matter what. The memory takes him back to a man who handed him a card, telling him to look for him if he wanted to find out who killed his brother. Back in the arena, Manhwa calls out for him again. As Pace leaps to deliver the final attack, suddenly time seems to stop, freezing his opponent's fist just inches from his face. Surprised, Manhwa opens his eyes and wonders why everything is moving so slowly. He soon understands that it's not time that has slowed down, but that he himself has become extremely fast. Pace's fist shatters the ground where his head was a second before. However, Manhwa had already propelled himself to the other side of the arena, and as stands, the spectators wonder what just happened. Kneeling on the broken floor, Pace questions when his opponent got over there. Manhwa explains that while he was bragging about his senses, there was enough time to rest, and now he's ready to get back in the fight. Hearing this, Pace realizes it's not bluff, and concludes that his opponent is even faster than before. The young man challenges him to see if he can keep up. He gets into his stance, suggesting they start with level 1. Pace then senses him coming his way. ManhwaCapped charges toward Pace. His punch is blocked, and he wonders if it was just luck. Deciding to try again, so Manhwa decides to intensify the attack. He throws another punch, but Pace dodges it. The young man is surprised by his opponent's speed. He retreats as Pace dodges another blow. Minho wonders how he's managing to keep up with his speed. Pace claims he can feel everything from his heartbeat to his movements. And now he has no blind spots. Minho realizes he has no chance with mediocre attempts and needs to risk it all. He then prepares to attack with maximum speed. The fighter lunges forward, breaking the ground with the force of his push. He announces he'll use his final blow, the right straight, but Pace hits him first with a punch to the face. Pace wonders why he fell on his own in the middle of an attack. He questions if he's okay, as he thought his own neck had been broken, and wonders if he was hallucinating again. Pace says that if he had gotten any closer, he would have broken his neck. But the kid saved his own life by tripping. Min-seok Kim notices that Minho's speed isn't working, as his opponent seems to sense the attacks in advance, so Minho starts moving using only his footwork. Min-seok realizes he has stopped using his super speed and is relying only on normal footwork. Questioning if he's tired, he wonders what the young man will do at normal speed. Min-seok yells for him to stop, warning he'll be killed, but his punch lands squarely on Pisces' face. Minho Kim dodges and lands a punch on Pisces' face. A spectator is amazed, commenting that he actually managed to land a punch. Then Minho moves quickly around his opponent. The young man keeps moving, breathing heavily. The spectator questions how he's going to attack. If he's using all his energy on these feints, Minho lunges forward and lands another clean hit on Pisces' face. The man is surprised that he landed another attack. He unleashes a series of punches to his opponent's chest. Pace again sees the images of Minho moving around him. The spectator wonders why he's still using feints when his punches are already working. But Amanda Groach explains that he's landing the attacks because of those feints. Minho then lands a hard punch to Pisces' torso. Amanda explains that he became predictable when he stopped using feints after thinking his opponent could no longer see. The man asks if he's tricking his opponent into thinking his vision works. Amanda then states it's more than that. Amanda reveals that Minho is deceiving all of Pisces' senses. She explains that with his new power, it would be easy for him to anticipate an attack, but he hasn't had this ability for long, and against advanced feints, his mind gets scattered, so Minho uses the chaos to distract him. Amanda comments that the boy managed to read in a short time how much his opponent could anticipate his movements. She then concludes that Minho might be stronger than they imagine. As he dodges an attack, the young man lands another punch on Pisces' face. Yu Zhangho turns and asks his assistant why he made him bet on a loser who can't even handle a kid. The assistant replies that's not the case, leaving his boss confused. He then tells him to look at Pace's face and asks if he looks like he's losing. Pace just states that he's got him, but suddenly grabs Minho from behind. He celebrates that the victory belongs to him and his senses. Pace lifts him into the air and slams him hard onto the ground. Everyone in the audience watches the scene in complete shock. The body he threw disperses. Pace wonders what happened, as he was sure he had caught him. Minho Kim remains standing unharmed, while his opponent is on the ground. One of the spectators asks why Pace suddenly threw himself backward on his own. Amanda then explains it was because Minho attacked his brain. Sal no questions what she means by brain. She clarifies that Minho persistently hit Pace's head, giving him no rest with each blow. His brain rattled, and the attacks continued before the vibration could stop. In this way, even someone with heightened senses couldn't maintain focus, and that's how Minho caused a failure in Pace's senses, enough to make him think he caught someone who wasn't there, lying on the ground. Pace wonders how his opponent's senses can be better without the drug. Finding it unfair, Pace finally collapses completely on the floor, and Minho just watches him. A drone announces that Pace can no longer fight. It then declares Minho Kim the winner, who staggers shortly after. Yu Sung-go, annoyed, slams the table and laments the outcome of the bet. Kneeling in the middle of the arena, Minho Kim looks up and calls out for his brother. Soon Yamcha observes that this is no fight between humans, and now understands why her brothers are so involved in the tournament. Her companion then says it's not just about the fights. He explains that this place can grant everything the rich desire, not just wealth and power. It also allows them to commit murder without a trace, and take drugs that don't show up on any tests. The place is a paradise for the rich, who no longer find pleasure in anything else. That's why the VIPs risk their pride so much here. And Sungyeon now understands why her second brother is trying to beat the eldest. The man adds that the director must have chosen his fighter carefully, as his recruiter knows the place well. Sungyeon states that's why they're making their move, but they'll have to see how good he is, and that will be decided in the next match. As Seano Kang prepares himself, someone watches Minho Kim's fight on a computer monitor. A man in a lab coat informs the wing director that all 16 whips have entered the building. The director is face bandaged, comments that with a full house he expects good results this year, and asks about the research. He reports that they've confirmed the manifestation of the second stage of sensory enhancement, with a nearly 20 reduction in short-term side effects, but the regenerative effect they were looking for didn't appear among the participants, leading the director to question if it was a failure. The scientist denies it, saying the drug's maximum effect should start now, and that their efforts will soon bear fruit. He adds that they've discovered a new effect of the drugs, and that after examination, he believes they'll find clues about the regenerative ability. The director understands he's referring to the skin strengthening effect and asks when he can verify this power. The man replies that it will be very soon, as the fighter for the next match in the main arena is getting ready. Kai is sitting alone in a room waiting elsewhere. Xiaomakon stretches next to a man. He advises Xiaomakon to throw in the towel if the fight gets too tough, but the young man states that won't happen and it shouldn't. The man then asks if he isn't even a little scared. Since he doesn't seem tense at all, Xiao simply confirms that he isn't surprised. The man concludes that he's one of the weird ones too. A drone approaches Xiao King and his companion, while Amanda Groach is sitting on the floor. The drone then requests that player Xiao King enter the arena. He wonders when he stopped feeling fear. Since he was young, he's been in many serious accidents that others couldn't imagine. Even in situations that seemed fatal, he always came out unharmed and at first would cry from shock. But after a few years it didn't matter how great the danger was. He was completely unfazed by anything. Many bullies tried to provoke him because he never got scared, and no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't make him flinch. In the end they were the ones who became afraid of him. The only thing he fears now is his family's safety, and not an opponent like Kai. Wien Cha notes that it's finally starting, and asks what drug Kai received. Then Seok Kim informs him that Kai took the skin-strengthening drug, and Ian Cha questions how that helps him fight. He explains that it does more than just help, as Kai's previous opponent had all the skin and muscle torn from his body. Ian then asks how skin strengthening leads to the opponent being torn apart. Minseok clarifies that Kai's skin couldn't be harmed by human strength and was so tough that it tore the opponent's skin on contact, and even the muscles were completely ripped to shreds. He then adds that many of the regular VIPs are interested in betting on him. Vin reflects on who he should bet on. Since Kai is a professional fighter with skin strengthening power, Minseok shows on a tablet that as he predicted, everyone is betting on Kai while no one is bet on Xianu. But suddenly he notices that someone bet 100 million won on Xianu before them. Ion gets worked up and asks who would have made that bet. In another private box song, Yan Cha observes the situation with her companion. The man beside her asks if she's sure about her decision. She replies that you can't expect rewards without taking risks, and that she needs to try reckless things to catch up to her brothers. Song Yun concludes that it remains to be seen whether he will bring a high return, or just be a huge risk to take. The drum announces the start of the fight between Qi and Xiano Kang. Xiano gets into a fighting stance, determined to win at all costs. He then notices his opponent isn't even preparing to fight. He asks Qi what he's doing and if he wants to fight or not. Kai replies that he's a warrior, not a bully who beats up kids. Then Kai approaches and proposes a single blow. With a tenth of his strength, he moves forward and tells the kid not to get up again, and he lands a powerful kick to Seono's torso. Seono falls to his knees on the ground. Iancha remarks that after a blow that painful, the match's outcome is already clear. The man with glasses leans over the railing and says he needs to get out of there now, but Min-Oh Kim states that he isn't screaming in pain, leaving the man confused. He's sure Seono realized that Kai had no intention of attacking him, only of scaring him. The man then asks if Chi is trying to help Seono. Min-Oh denies it and says he just doesn't want to fight, because it would be embarrassing. He thinks his reputation would be damaged if he fought seriously against a student like Seono. So basically he's telling Seono to just surrender and lose. Kai says he was supposed to pretend to be knocked out, not just scream. He continues, saying that complaining won't make a difference and that he'll give him another chance. Sao simply interrupts him, leaving Chi surprised as Sao stands up and asks if he's trying to win a debate. Chi claims he'll give him a taste of his true strength, so he can fake a knockout convincingly. Chi lunges forward with a high kick towards Seono King, but Seono ducks under it and strikes his opponent's supporting leg. Everyone in the audience reacts, completely stunned by the counterattack. Kai then yells that he told him to stay on the ground. He rushes at Sae Nui and throws a punch. The young man leans back, narrowly dodging the attack. Kai is astonished by how far he tilted his head to dodge. Then Sae Nui leaps into the air, flipping over him and lands a solid slap on Kai's head. Woo Chao watches the scene, completely shocked. Kai says he was giving him another chance to act. Xiano asks if talking about giving chances isn't a bit much for someone who was just brought to his knees by a student. He states that if Kai is cowardly enough to kneel, then he's not even worth punching. Kai then decides that if he can't even fake it to save his own life, he'll have to help him out. Kai grabs Sion's shoulders, saying it'll scare him into trying to fight. The young man is startled when he realizes he can't move. Tae then announces he'll use 50 of his strength and delivers a powerful headbutt to Seonu. Kai wonders if he used too much force as he felt pain from the blow. Then a foot comes towards him, hitting his chin. Seonu uses the momentum to land a kick on Kai's face. The impact sends Chi staggering back. As Seonu lands, he wonders how the kid wasn't affected by his headbutt. Seonu stumbles slightly to the side and laments that his vision is still blurry. Kai rushes forward to throw a punch. The blow grazes him but tears Seonu's shirt. Mr. King is astonished, questioning how Seonu's shirt ripped like that. If Kai's fist only grazed him. Min-ho Kim warns that he isn't finished yet. Kai then lands an elbow strike on Seonu's back and raises his fist to strike him on the head. Mr. King yells for him not to do it as it will kill him. Seonu King falls to the ground and Chi stands over him. Mr. King shouts, saying this is going too far, but Min-ho Kim comments that the situation is almost unbelievable, leaving the man confused. He then wonders what exactly Seonu is. He also questions what's wrong with the kid lying in front of him. He realizes that even before his elbow hit him, Seonu slammed his own head on the ground. Kai then wonders if that was intentional. He concludes it wasn't, and that Seonu probably wasn't thinking straight out of fear. But he still questions if the boy thinks his head is made of steel. And then Seonu starts to get up. Kai is surprised he's already getting up and wonders how. Since he heard he didn't use any drugs, Mr. King watches this scene in shock, not understanding what's happening. Minho just says that this means Seonu isn't a child he needs to worry about, and concludes that for some reason, something about him gives him the chills. Seonu King gets into his stance, ready to continue the fight. Kai tells him not to force himself to look tough, as he would have left him alone if he had just faked the knockout. But the young man cuts him off, saying he's mumbling again, and challenges him to see if he's as strong as he thinks, or if it's all talk. Kai concludes that to make him give up, he'll need to show him that his attacks are useless. So he opens his arms and tells Seonu to do whatever he wants, as he won't defend himself. His opponent's attitude irritates him. Even though it's an advantage, Kai risked everything in his life to become the greatest combat fighter. He defeated every fighter he could find in the ring. But that wasn't enough for him. He believed that to become a true warrior, he needed to survive fights with killing intent, so he sought out the strongest criminals and killers, joining their rival gangs, and fought to level up and become the greatest warrior. That's why he sees no need to take a fight against a kid seriously. Kai then encourages him to attack, claiming he won't cause him any damage. Seonu lands a direct punch to Kai's abdomen. The spectators watch the scene intently. Kai grabs his fist and states that the blow won't cause any damage, but his face suddenly shows surprise. Seonu simply says he'll land another one. He then lands another punch, this time in the pit of Kai's stomach. Chi is stunned, not understanding what's happening. Seonu continues the attack with a high kick towards him, but Kai manages to block the kick with his arm. Annoyed, he prepares a counterattack. Seonu realizes he needs to dodge the impending attack. Kai hits him with a powerful punch to the chest, tearing his shirt and his chest. The young man is surprised by the blow, thinking he needs to get away from him. He takes a few steps back as Kai prepares to attack again. Kai asks how many more chances he needs to give him. Seonu simply lets out a laugh, surprised. Kai asks if he just laughed. Seonu then asks if he forgot what he just said. He rips his own shirt off, revealing a muscular physique. The spectator with glasses is amazed and asks where all that muscle came from. Seonu then taunts him, asking why he defended himself. Kai turns and admits what he did. He acknowledges that Seonu isn't just some kid who was dragged here for a show, but he warns him not to forget that he was the one who forced him to do this. He unleashes his full power and declares he's using 100. A smile appears on Seonu Kang's face. The man in glasses wonders why Seonu is smiling, questioning if he's lost his mind over the situation. But Amanda Groach says that actually he looks pretty excited. He gets worked up, pointing out that their opponent is about to attack with full force. She explains that Seonu is excited because a strong opponent like Ki has finally acknowledged him. The man in glasses doesn't understand how he can think about that with his life on the line. Amanda then reveals she used to feel the same way. She says her opponents never took her seriously at first because she was a woman, but after a while they would start fighting with everything they had, and that got her so excited her heart would start pounding. He tells her to calm down, asking why she's smiling now too. Minho Kim then speaks up, saying he knows that excitement too. He recalls how everyone looked down on him for being a small, weak kid back then. The only thing that made him feel alive was dodging their punches, and then he'd land a direct hit on his opponent. Minho Kim smiles, saying it was the look on their faces when they finally recognized him as a real fighter. The man in glasses sighs, starting to understand. He concludes that Seonu has the heart of a fighter too. In the ring, the two opponents rush toward each other, Keanu decides he'll strike first. He throws a punch at Kai, who blocks it with his arm. Mr. King comments, "I'm a son of the impact." Believing Chi was surprised by the power, but Xianu realizes his opponent's skin is like concrete. Chi warns him that he's going to return the favor. With one punch he slams Xianu to the ground. The spectator feels the ground shake and declares that Kai is on another level. The force of the impact sends Xianu flying into the air. Lying on the ground, Xianu struggles to breathe. The man in glasses points out that Xianu managed to dodge the blow, but Minho Kim corrects him, stating he didn't dodge it completely. A wound appears on Xianu's back. He feels an unfamiliar sensation. Then Xianu wonders if he's scared. He glares at his opponent and asks himself if he's feeling fear because of him. Kai challenges him to just admit it, and states that Xianu will never be able to beat him. Xianu tells him to shut up, saying he's not the only monster here. He braces himself and says that anything Chi can do, he can do too as he lunges forward with an attack. Seono's attack misses its mark. He lands on the ground after the move. Kai then announces that it's his turn. Spectator with glasses realizes he's going for a headbutt. Seonu hits Kai with a headbutt. He then declares that anything his opponent can do, he can do too lying on the ground. Seonu trembles and gasps for air. Kai claims the fight is already over, as Seonu's attacks lack skill and are just brute force. A smile appears on Seonu's face. His opponent is surprised and asks why he's smiling. Kai then approaches and says that if he won't give up, then he'll end the fight for him. The man in glasses wonders about the source of the heat. Noticing that Xianu's blood and sweat are evaporating, Xianu reveals he never liked fighting, because being dragged into all those brawls made him feel like a monster. But he wonders if this place is getting to him, because he can't stop smiling. Then he admits he can't contain the urge to fight this guy. As Kai lunges forward, Xianu jumps and kicks him in the face. Then he grabs his opponent's head in midair. Kai is shocked, saying he's too fast. Xianu headbutts him in midair. He spins him around after the impact and violently throws him against the wall. Kai watches Xianu recover and states that he barely seems human. The young man then leaps and smashes his head against the structure. He holds him tightly and says, "Got you." Xianu lands a direct punch to his opponent's face. He follows up with a flurry of rapid blows to Kai's body. A final punch sends him flying backward. He wonders what kind of drug Xianu took. He then questions if his opponent ever gets tired. As he charges forward again, Kai manages to land a kick on Xianu. He loses his balance and Kai tries a second kick, but misses. Seonu then lands two direct punches to his face. Kai is stunned by the blows. Seonu lands an uppercut to his chin. The spectators watch the scene in silence. He remains motionless after the exchange. Mr. King asks if Kai is dead from all the bleeding, but Amanda Groach says that blood doesn't belong to Kai. She then reveals the blood is coming from Silno's fists. The young man starts to feel as if he's intoxicated and feels his entire body tearing apart from the inside. Su Yang Chao wonders how Chi is still able to stand. The man in sunglasses explains that his skin acts like armor, causing more damage to Seonu's fists. She then asks if her companion has any chance against Kai at all. He in turn admits he's never felt that kind of pain before, but his opponent seems to have reached his limit, barely able to open his eyes. Kai decides to break Siono's legs to end the fight and charges forward, but the young man manages to block his kick. Kai doesn't understand how he can still react so quickly. Siono lands a punch on his face. His own fist tears from the impact. Seeing this, Kai decides to fight, until one of them is torn to pieces and rushes into attack. The two exchange a violent flurry of blows. Seino wonders if his attacks are even working, since he can no longer feel his own fist. He realizes he can't keep this up. Kai realizes the kid is landing his attacks flush, so the skin on his fists won't be torn off. He feels a strange sensation in his fist without understanding why. He feels his punch is getting weaker, and decides not to waste any more time. Kai then sees an opening in Siono's guard, and decides to use the move he's trained for over a decade. He prepares to deliver a low kick. The blow lands squarely on Seono's leg. Kai follows up with another kick, screaming that his opponent's legs are finished. Seono blocks the kick with his own shin. The man with glasses is stunned, realizing he countered the blow with his shin. The young man's leg shatters on impact. From the sound, the spectator concludes the bone must be broken. Seono grits his teeth against the pain. He realizes his muscles have torn and he can no longer move. Kai moves in for the final attack. He then yells that the fight is over, but Kai's kick is stopped at the last moment. Kai doesn't understand what just happened. He drops to his knees. Kai wonders if this is a dream. Everyone in the audience watches this scene in shock. Down remains standing over Kai's fallen body. Ayancha turns to his assistant and asks what's going on. Minsa Chim explains that the skin-strengthening drug only led to more accumulated damage. He continues saying that Kai's bones took the blows directly, but the drug kept him from feeling pain. Now Kai's arms and legs are likely covered in fractures. The drone announces that Kai can no longer continue to fight. It then declares Sao Nukon the winner of the match, and he shouts in celebration. The man with glasses despairs, questioning why he won't fall as if he were a zombie. Mineo Kim watches and comments that the boy, Siano, might be hiding something, lying on the ground. Siano asks his mother to hold on just a little longer. In a room, a bandaged figure asks if they're sure the boy didn't use any drugs. An assistant confirms the records say he didn't, and that he'll be examined again after the first round. The bandaged figure then decides to first find out who he is, and he'll do it through the boy's parents. Meanwhile, a heavy rain falls over a hospital in the room. Salno's mother watches over her husband, who is hooked up to machines. Someone enters the room and she turns around. She warns that visiting hours aren't over yet, but two men in suits appear behind her and the woman asks who they are. Back in the arena, medics carry Siono away on a stretcher. Ayeon-cha questions if he'll be able to win the next round. With so many injuries, Min-seok Kim says they will postpone the decision until his medical exam. He reveals he plans to run a secret drug test on him during the exam. Ayeon-cha is surprised, and Yushin-go's assistant comments that if he passes the second test, Sao Nu will become a top contender for victory. The man asks if it's allowed to run a secret test. If the player refuses, the assistant explains, it's just a test to check for doping compatibility, so it can be done secretly. Then Yunin-cha asks what will happen if the test fails. The assistant replies that he'd be useless anyway, so they would just move on to plan B. Inside the room, a treatment chamber is running next to medical monitors. The chamber opens, and a person in a protective suit approaches Sao-no with a syringe in hand. Yusin-go's assistant says that if they play their cards right, he can reach the top 16 with just one more win. Ayeon-cha summarizes the situation: if he wins one more time, he'll reach the top 31 with the betting money included. He could even make the top 60. The assistant confirms this. However, in doubts people will place such high bets on Siano. Given his severe injuries, the assistant reminds him that Siano has already won 2 rounds without using any drugs, and no one has ever won a single match in this tournament without doping. The fact that he reached the top 62 without drugs will attract the attention of many VIPs, generating a huge amount in bets with just one more win. Leon-cha says that means nothing as he won't win without the drugs, and suggests they pick a safer option. The assistant believes Sano has already realized he needs the drug to win and save his family. Leon-cha states that if his body is intolerant to drugs, they'll discard him regardless of the outcome. The man confirms he has already arranged to cut off the hospital payments and the security for Siono's parents in case of failure. His boss agrees, adding that Siono won't be around to hear the news about his parents. Anyway, the assistant announces an agent will bring the results shortly, and Uin-cha comments that these are the benefits of having a secretary from the combat wing. He then asks the assistant why he's risking his life, knowing it's not for him, but the man claims he is risking his own life as well. Uin-cha says his goal is to get rid of his brother and become the owner of a Hasen group, and the assistant just confirms it. Yushin-go's assistant revealed his goal is to find the greatest human in that combat wing, and that he will risk everything for it. He adds that he would even risk other people's lives. Ayeon-cha sighs and comments that he likes this passionate side of him. An agent enters the room and warns that it's time to leave. The assistant then asks about the drug test result. The agent informs him that surprisingly, the boy had no reaction. The assistant concludes that the drugs don't work on Sao-nu, and the agent confirms it. Ayeon-cha gets angry and orders them to eliminate all evidence, starting by cutting off support for his parents. But he then reconsidered, saying it would be easier to just get rid of them. In a recovery room, Siano rests inside the chamber. In the combat wing's lobby, dozens of fighters gather. Min-oh Kim assumes the 62 winners have been decided since they were called to the lobby. The man with glasses notices Siano's absence and deduces he's still recovering. Min-oh says that might be for the best, as the fights will only resume once everyone is recovered. Min-oh Kim comments that it might be a good time for Siano to rest, but is surprised by Amanda's stretching. She then states that he looked tired from the start. Min-oh Kim comments that fights here usually leave injuries, as happened with him and Sao-nu, but he points out that the two of them reached the top 62 completely unharmed. He then turns to the man with glasses and mentions his arm in particular. No one expected such an extraordinary right arm like that. The man smiles and admits he didn't know his arm could change that way either. As for Amanda's opponent, he said he wouldn't use his arms against a woman and ended up knocked out with a single blow. To be honest, Min-oh saw her knock out her opponent so fast, and he still doesn't know exactly how she defeated him. Min-oh Kim then asks if she can tell him how she did it. She turns and questions why she would tell him that. Amanda explains that he might become her opponent in the near future. Suddenly, Menon appears and asks why he was left out of the conversation. He then brags to the group, saying he was the very first one to win. A voice congratulates the fighters for reaching the top 62. He explains that by defeating one more opponent, they'll have a chance to go straight to the top 60. After winning this round and reaching the top 31, they will be ranked by the money wagered to decide the top 16. And if they survive the round of 16, they will receive 5% of the bets as prize money. The crowd of fighters cheers at the news. The voice encourages them to risk their lives to show the VIPs how strong they are without worrying about injuries. Then he announces that the matchups for the round will be revealed. At the Hasan Group headquarters, the conversation continues. Biancha asks if they can secure other candidates besides Sanya, and Yushingo's assistant confirms they can. He shows a fighter on a tablet who seems to be the right candidate, and Ayancha asks who it is. The assistant reveals it's Xianu's opponent. Ryo Ikaka Xianu suddenly wakes up, stepping out of the chamber and screaming for his mother. He realizes it wasn't a dream, and that he really heard the conversation. A person in a protective suit comments on the order to get rid of his parents if he doesn't react to the drugs. Seono understands that he needs to get out of there as fast as possible in the combat wing director's office. A doctor arrives for a meeting. The director is questioned about the results of Xianu's medical exam. The doctor replies that there was something special. He explains that the young man has a trait that their drugs can enhance. Xianu's bone density is 10 times higher than average. His superior finds the information incredible, but the doctor reveals there's more. And the director asks what it is. He states that the boy's recovery speed is excessively fast. Showing the data, the doctor corrects himself, saying the process resembled regeneration. The new information surprises the director. The doctor suggests that Shinu could provide clues for the regeneration drug they're searching for. Understanding the boy's importance, the director asks if his parents have been secured. The doctor apologizes, and his superior demands to know the reason for the failure. He begins to explain that when his team arrived at the location, someone had already gotten there first. In the recovery room, Siono sits up suddenly. He says that something bad might happen to his parents if he doesn't get to them now. But the young man realizes there isn't even a vent for air to escape the room. Determined, he tries to open the door to look for an air duct or another exit. He is then surprised to see someone entering the room. A young woman comments that it's good to see him up close, and introduces herself as Xiang Yancha. Xianu tells her to get out of his way. She advises him not to look for his parents. Leaving him confused, Sung Yang claims she is taking good care of them. Far away in Union Chao's office, a serious conversation is taking place. He asks what his assistant means by someone already got to Siono's parents. The man reports that they disappeared without a trace, and that the combat wing must have something to do with it. His boss asks about the combat wing, and he explains that they always move quickly to get rid of anything that could cause trouble. Aincha comments that they didn't even have to get their hands dirty, and that luck must be on their side today. He then asks if his assistant has already contacted the next fighter. The assistant reassures him, explaining that in the combat wing, VIPs can summon fighters to their rooms and go anywhere except the restricted areas. His assistant asks if he's allowing them to walk toward those monsters, and Union Cha confirms that he is. But the man warns that it's not a good idea to casually wander around the wing. Safety is only guaranteed inside the VIP room. Back in the recovery room, Celian locks the door behind her. Celian demands to know what she means by taking care of his parents. Song Yang asks for silence and tells him to lower his voice if he wants to save them. She states that running away now won't do any good. Xianu pushes her hand away and asks what she means by that. Song Yang explains that Yu Yang is trying to get rid of any evidence linking him to Xianu and his parents by the first step. She adds that the loan sharks he beat up are also looking for him. She says she came alone to speak with him privately, and that she also wants to keep his parents safe. He then asks who she is and what she wants from him. Song Yan introduces herself and says she only needs one thing. She then points at Siono and says she needs him. Leaving him surprised, he asks what she's talking about. Xiang Non reveals she is one of the 16 VIPs and needs a reliable fighter to bet on. She states that although she's young, she was one of the owners of a Hasan group until recently. To make it easier to understand, she reveals that she's the half-sister of his former employer. She adds that she was kicked out of the Hasan group because of his schemes, but she was already planning to leave. Their businesses are doing well, so she doesn't mind being kicked out. So-young reveals that she still doesn't want her brothers to ruin her father's company, and that she can't let that happen. Seo-yoon asks her what all of this has to do with his parents. She explains that to sum it up, her siblings and she are constantly spying on each other, and she's been keeping a close watch on her second brother when she saw him go to great lengths to recruit him. She approached his parents to find out more about him. Sung-yeon realized he was even more incredible than she thought, and she concludes by saying she couldn't let her brother monopolize his extraordinary genes. Seo-nu questions the mention of his genes. Sung-yeon warns him that the important thing is that many people are looking for his parents. He then asks what she wants him to do if running away is useless. She claims to be sure that there's only one way to save him and his parents. Hyunwoo asks what that one way would be. Sunjun declares they needs to win. She reveals her plan to make a deal that will ruin her brothers by betting on the Combat Wing Championship, and she guarantees that if everything goes as planned, her brother will be in prison, and the loan sharks can be dealt with using money. Hyunwoo questions the validity of her promise in a secret place like this. She explains that in the Combat Wing, anyone who doesn't keep their word is eliminated by the local authorities. He then asks if she's willing to risk her own life to bet on him. Seong-yeon states that she's not the only one who needs this partnership, because when the 16 finalists are chosen, anyone not selected by a VIP is immediately disqualified, but he insists on knowing how he can be sure his parents are safe, and how he can trust rich people. She replies that cell phones and other electronic devices are not allowed inside. Sung-yeon says that because of this, there's nothing she can show him, but she claims he should be able to trust someone who has shared secrets with his parents. She then reveals it's someone who knows the secrets of his parents' past and how he got his genes. He demands to know what it's about and asks her to tell him now. At that moment the room's door opens. Siwon reminds him not to forget that she's guarding his parents with her own life, so there's no need for him to escape. A drone enters the room and she says it's time to go. She reassures him, telling him not to worry about anything else, as she turns to leave. Sung-yeon states that he just needs to win by her side. Far away in Dorm 10 of the Combat Wing, other fighters are gathered. One man comments that their prize money has increased considerably. Looking at a large screen, he wonders how Seonu is in last place. One of the young men explains it's because he was sent to the recovery room, and nobody bets on an injured fighter. A drone announces that player Seonu King has returned to room 10. A man greets him saying he looks much better than expected. The door closes and he comments that Seonu must have rested very well. Seonu asks him how he managed to win without getting hurt. Seonu explains that he needs to get into the top 16, or his family is done for. He begs him to tell him anything, stating he'll do whatever it takes, in a gesture of desperation. He asks for his help. He then assumes it was too much to ask. A woman approaches and suggests a finishing move. Seonu repeats her suggestion. Confused, she explains that it's hard to dominate a fight without a finishing move, especially in the Combat Wing. The fighter then asks him what his specialty is. The older Mr. King then suggests a calf kick using his strong shin. He comments that few people can control their legs with his precision and speed, and recalls that during the fight with Chet, Sono blocked the low kick, which shows confidence in his shin bone. While demonstrating the move, he explains that the calf kick has become a blow capable of taking down opponents with a single hit. He then asks Seonu to show him the same kick. The force of the impact leaves the man surprised. He then congratulates him, saying that Seonu is very talented. Suddenly a loud noise from the ceiling interrupts the conversation. The older fighter questions the origin of that sound. In a distant room, Ryo Ikaka, ranked 15th and a Kudo practitioner, is training, causing noise throughout the building with his punches. Back in the dorm, the strategy talk continues. Yu Jin-go advises Seonu to use the calf kick to increase his chances of winning and get his prize money back, but Menon suddenly appears and says he's completely mistaken. Seonu turns to face him, questioning the interruption. Menon claims everyone should already know that Seono's finishing move isn't a calf kick. He then points to Seono's forehead and reveals that his real finishing move is the headbutt, and he reminds everyone that Seonu countered a Lethwei champion's headbutt multiple times. Menon concludes that the fact Seonu kept fighting proves his skull is the strongest of all. Yu Jin-go steps in, warning that headbutts hurt both the one giving them and the one receiving them. He adds that it's not a viable tactic against the monsters in the combat ward, explains that he could die from brain damage in less than 2 rounds. Menon finds his comment funny. He then asks if they all didn't put their lives on the line by entering the competition. He warns them that if they hesitate against the top-ranked players, they could die on the spot. Then tells him he shouldn't be worrying about Seonu right now, and reveals he's talking about his own next opponent. A large screen announces the next fight: Min So-han vs. Yuzak Park. Far away, someone walks through a restricted area of the combat ward. The director reviews a fighter's data on his tablet. He comments that Min So-han's response to the drug is terrifying. Standing before several containment tanks, the director states it was a great idea to bring him there. A doctor approaches and his superior says he must be proud of his son. He then bows, saying it was all possible thanks to the director. The doctor convinces himself he made the right decision. As he had no other choice, the doctor recalls a time before he knew about the combat ward, when he used to come home late. Back then, his son suffered from a rare disease that consumed his muscles, and would ask for help just to stand up. He felt helpless, as he was just a salaried doctor with nothing he could do. Just when he thought all was lost, he received a message from a hospital director, whom he had never met. The doctor could never have imagined why he was summoned to the hospital's crematorium. He was led down a staircase into an unknown world. The hallway revealed countless people, suspended inside containment tanks. Upon entering the building he was summoned to, he faced a new reality. There was a list of famous people and renowned scientists, but he wasn't interested in why they were there. Then he saw the results of the drug tests being conducted. Seeing those results, he couldn't hold back his tears. The director surprised him from behind and asked what he thought as the doctor thought of his son. And the man offered him the chance to have his son participate in that experiment. In that moment he almost accepted without thinking of the consequences, but he started to run away from there. Back to his son, he recalls his son who had gone to school, saying he felt fine that day, trying to take his own life. The doctor saves him and realizes he had forgotten how they were truly living. In his arms the young man begs his father. He asks his father to just kill him. The doctor despairs as there was nothing more he could do. He then accepts the director's offer and joins the combat ward, wondering if there was any other path for them, and he wonders if that decision turned him into the monster he is now. Back in the present, a drone instructs Min-soo-han to enter the arena. The young man prepares for the upcoming fight. The doors open and he enters the arena facing his opponent. Yusik Park, a Krav Maga practitioner, readies himself for the start of the match. Min-soo-han, a Kali Arni practitioner, takes his fighting stance. The drone announces the start of the fight between the two competitors. The fight begins and they both charge at each other. Min-soo-han strikes his opponent's right arm. The spectators react with surprise to the unexpected blow. Min-ho-kim comments that not even Yusik Park would expect knife fighting skills. In an unarmed match, muscles of Yusik's arm contract around Min-soo-han's fingers. Min-soo realizes his fingers have been trapped by his opponent's muscles. Yusik Park squeezes his fingers even tighter. He then asks the young man if he didn't get a little too close. With his other hand he unleashes a powerful slap, nearly hitting Min-soo. Min-soo-han wonders what's up with that old man. Yusik Park praises his opponent's skills and says he'll return a favor. Yusik Park declares he will use his specialty knife fighting skills. From a private box, Aisha wonders who Yusik Park is and how he's facing Min-soo. Ranked 9th so easily. His assistant explains that he's a former bodyguard who primarily uses Krav Maga. Aisha asks what Krav Maga is. The man explains that the martial art was created by a Jewish soldier to protect civilians, and that it's a martial art focused on real-world combat, combining practical skills from various other fights. He also adds that it's known for being especially effective in close quarters combat. Aisha deduces that if the art is designed for protection, its attacks must be weak, making the fighter an unsuitable candidate, but his assistant says he's not so sure about that. He then asks him about the possibility that the method of protection is eliminating the threat. Yusik moves toward Min-soo-han. Min-soo watches the blow approach and considers it too slow. Yusik Park's strike flies past his opponent's face. Min-soo-han dodges the attack and states that his opponent is too slow. Yusik Park tries to block his counter-attack, but Min-soo's fingers pierce his opponent's temple. Yusik swings his arm to push him away, but Min-soo backs off. He then charges forward, determined to catch him at any cost. Min-soo taunts him, saying he'll be useless with that unbalanced body. Yusik uses his arm to push off the ground. Announcing his charge, he launches himself toward his opponent. The fighter hits him with a blow that slams him to the ground. Min-soo-han takes the impact directly to his face. Yusik presses him against the wall with several blows, but his adversary says it's useless. He then backs away after being hit. Min-soo hits him in two vital spots on his chest. He comments that Yusik managed to stop him and wonders how long that will last. Min-soo then unleashes a series of rapid attacks against Yusik Park's body. Yusik Park admits he can't keep up with the speed of the attacks. Min-soo-han then hits him with a final blow to the back. The scene leaves the other fighters completely stunned. Min-ho-kim wonders if that's the true strength of a 9th ranked player and if there's any way to beat him. Even covered in injuries, Yusik Park remains standing. Min-soo taunts him, asking why he clenched his fists, if he's given up on his knife fighting skills. Yusik Park then stretches out his arms, opening his guard. His opponent questions the tactic, asking if he plans to grab him if he gets closer. Min-soo advances, declaring that it won't work on him and that his opponent must die. He then strikes Yusik Park's back once more. He then throws a punch into his own stomach. Min-ho-kim watches the scene, surprised by the fighter's action. But Amanda explains that he wasn't just punching himself, but trying to grab something. She reveals he was trying to remove his opponent's fingers that were attacking him from the inside. Manhwa calls him a crazy old man as he prepares to attack, but Mr. Kang lands a solid punch on him. The impact sends him flying through a window. Mr. Kang states that he hasn't defeated him yet and needs to land another hit. He realizes the muscles in his right arm have taken a lot of damage, even so he needs to attack him again somehow. Declaring it's his only chance, he charges forward, then he yells that he just needs one more hit. Mr. Kang stumbles as he runs. From a distance, Seano Kang shouts for his father to hang in there. Fallen Chil says he's lost too much blood and can't lift his arm. He apologizes to his son but then questions what he's thinking. Chil orders himself to pull it together and points forward. Chil Han reveals that he's actually right-handed. And then he strikes Yuzak Park in the head. Seeing this, Seano Kang screams his father's name. Yuzak manages to block the attack by piercing his own palm. Chihun congratulates him on the desperate attempt, but he states that his fingers are longer and pushes them through. Yuzak Park spits up blood. He then collapses to the ground. Seano calls out for Kang. Manhwa shouts Seano Kang's name. He tells the young man to take a good look, because that old man is going to die because of him. Manhwa then delivers a final blow and a memory. Yuzak Park holds him and says he needs to rest, but the young man asks to go a little longer. Yuzak Park says that if he had spent more time like this with his son, maybe things would have been different. Seano Kang realizes that maybe this is what it would have been like if he were close to his father. The young man wonders if he'll get another chance, but Yuzak reassures him, saying a father wouldn't leave a son like him behind. He then states that likewise, he won't die and leave his own son. A drone announces that the match has ended with Manhwa Han's victory. Il-Han steps on Yuzak Park's head. He laughs and exclaims how fun this place is. Seano leaps towards Manhwa. He gets up and faces Manhwa as drones fly over the arena. Watching from afar, Minho Kim notices the guides aren't shooting at him. He then assumes the drones don't fire as long as there's no actual fight. The two opponents stare each other down from a distance. Seano Kang yells at him to get his foot off. Manhwa dares him to take it off himself. He charges forward, yelling once more for the punk to get his foot off. Minho Kim moves and declaring he needs to stop them somehow. Then Menon grabs Seano Kang from behind. Seano struggles and shouts for him to let go. Menon says he should at least live long enough to use the skill he taught him. He continues to struggle, demanding to be released. But Minho Kim approaches and knocks him down. Menon tells Seano it's better if he takes a nap. Seano starts to lose consciousness. His vision fades as he calls out for Yuzak in a memory. Yuzak asks Seano if he could look after his son. If something happened to him, he says he hopes Seano becomes friends with his son to make sure he doesn't go down the wrong path. Seano replies that he thought that was obvious. He then adds that there's still a lot he'd like to learn from Yuzak, and that it makes sense to be friends with his son. He concludes by saying that way he can learn more from Yuzak. Then Yuzak grabs him and calls him a punk for trying to take advantage of him. Even after they get out back in the prison, Chao Hun's foot presses Yuzak Park's head into the ground. Nearby, Seo and Yu Kang, Minho Kim and Menon are lying unconscious. Xiaohan looks at the scene and comments on their state. Then Amanda Groch approaches and tells him to leave if he's gotten the attention he wanted from Seano. He asks if he still needs more love and attention from the young man. Xiaohan asks her if she wants to die too, but Amanda dares him to start a fight and get shot by the guy. She then adds that she could just beat him to death instead. Xiao takes his foot off Yuzak, saying her time will come, and he states that he'll kill them all anyway. He then walks away towards a door. Amanda runs to Yuzak Park and shakes him, trying to wake him up. Amanda Groch states that he's not dead. Then she calls the medical team over, telling them to hurry. She looks at his hand and states she's sure his left hand saved his life. He used his hand to divert the attack slightly away from his heart. The medical team carries him away on a stretcher. Elsewhere, Ayansha's assistant exclaims that Manhwa is a complete monster. Ayansha questions how he can use his fingers as a weapon. His assistant explains that it's because the effect of Manhwa's doping is very special. Most muscle enhancement drugs just increase muscle size, but in Manhwa's case the tendons, ligaments, and other tissues around the bones have been drastically enhanced. He concludes that this could be much more useful in combat than Seano's enhanced bones. Ayansha then asks if they shouldn't try to recruit him immediately. The assistant replies that Manhwa is a fighter managed directly by the director, so it's not easy to contact him. He reassures him that there are still many other fighters to choose from, including those in the next match. Ayansha asks if he's referring to that female capoeira specialist. The assistant confirms he was. Ayansha questions if capoeira isn't just a type of dance. His assistant explains that while it looks like a dance, it's not for entertainment, and its origins trace back to when African slaves were taken to Brazil to escape oppression and harsh conditions. They developed this martial art. It was disguised as a dance to deceive the guards watching over them. He describes it as a martial art of sorrow and pain, not joy, mentioning It was used in criminal activities after Brazil's independence to the point that the government banned it at one time, making it not only an effective martial art, but also a dangerous one. The fighter Amanda Grotte, ranked 19th and a capoeira practitioner, is introduced. A drone announces that the fighters for the next match have entered the arena. Haikusugo, ranked 10th and a mixed martial arts practitioner, is also introduced then. The drone announces the start of the match between Amanda Grotte and Haikusugo. Amanda gets into her fighting stance. She wonders if he's underestimating her, as he doesn't seem to be preparing to fight. Deciding to strike first, she moves in with a kick. Aincha says that's enough talk about Amanda Grotte and capoeira. He then asks about the other fighter, Haikusugo, stating that is the 10th ranked fighter. He must also be exceptional. His assistant explains that he used to compete in MMA, without much success, but gained dynamic vision after using the drugs from this place, now nicknamed K10 Seconds among the VIPs. The bets on him have been rising fast. Huyen Cha questions the nickname. The assistant clarifies that he's won every fight by knockout in matches that never lasted more than 10 seconds. Impressed, Huyen Cha exclaims, "That's incredible." The assistant adds that he's attracted many bettors by finishing all his previous fights without a scratch. But the fame of his 10-second streak, the hype around him has grown even more. If he can keep this title, he'll draw a huge amount of money and jump to at least 5th place immediately in the arena. Haikusugo waits for the fight to begin. The drone announces the start of the match, and a timer shows 1 second. Haikusugo watches Amanda's attack, declaring he can see everything with his dynamic vision. He then blocks her strike even though he wasn't prepared. But confused, he looks at the ground and wonders why the floor is there. On the ground, he realizes she defeated him in 10 seconds. The timer hits 10 seconds as Amanda stands over her defeated opponent. Then the drone announces Amanda Grotte's victory, and she states that some techniques are too fast for the senses to follow. And Cha stands up and asks what just happened. His assistant explains the problem was that Hayakusu thought he only needed to block 1 kick, and immediately went on the offensive. And Cha asks if it isn't how fights work, you block, then counterattack. The assistant replies that Huchua thought the same thing. He explains that a knockout kick only requires energy to be compressed on one side, and then that energy is released towards the target. If the first attack fails, the attacker won't have time to gather that energy again, making the next blow weaker. At a counterattack, especially when both feet are off the ground, there's no lever to compress and store all that energy. Huyen Cha then asks if that wasn't the situation Amanda Grotte was in. He repeats that both of her feet were off the ground in her first attack miss. His assistant confirms that's exactly why Hayaku tried to attack immediately, but he states there's one thing Hayaku overlooked about Amanda Grotte, and Huyen Cha asks what it is. The assistant explains that capoeira uses both arms and legs as levers. He continues saying Amanda received a power drug that increased her muscle density instead of size, making her attacks fast and powerful. So he states that right now, Amanda can attack with great power and speed in any situation, and because of that there's no telling what she's capable of. Huyen Cha remarks that it seems there are still some useful fighters out there. His assistant warns him it will be very difficult to get a meeting with her now, and Huyen Cha asks why. He explains that since she knocked out K10 Seconds in 10 seconds, she'll probably inherit that title. All the money and the VIPs who were betting on him will now flock to her. Huyen Cha asks if his assistant can't handle that much competition, but the assistant reassures him, saying there's no need to rush as there are still many interesting fighters. Aincha asks if the next one is also a 4th 10 fighter, and he confirms it. The assistant states the next match will be very interesting as the fighter will have no choice but to give it his all. Minho King greets him saying he's finally awake. Siano King jumps to his feet and asks what's going on. He then asks why he's there. The young man immediately asks for Yuzuka. He stops mid-sentence while asking what happened. Amanda Grotte appears at the door. Minho says he's alive, so she asks if he's done yet. She states that she felt him breathing. Amanda then tells Minho his match is soon and asks if he shouldn't be warming up. He replies that he knows, as that opponent might be the reason he came here. In a flashback, Amanda assures him he'll make him find the person who murdered his brother. In combat, Minho Kim asks him how he would know who it is, since he doesn't even know his name. The man replies that they know he entered the combat wing, and as a former boxer he adds that he'll give more details later. But it's certain there aren't many ex-boxers in the wing. Back in the arena, the fighter Wanu Choi ranked 16th. Then a boxing specialist is introduced. At this, his assistant begins to describe the 5th place holder. In 5th place is Lev, a system practitioner working as a Russian bodyguard. He was also a former member of the Special Forces. Rumor has it he eliminated everyone who tried to harm his clients. During that time he ended up under investigation for excessive force, after killing 8 assailants. which is why his employer decided to drop him. However, a short time later, a man hired him again as a bodyguard and gave him a new identity. The one who offered him the second chance and brought him here was Michael Lee, the head of the military contractor Pion. Hearing this, Uyan-cha comments that without a connection at that level, man would be worthless. Additionally, the assistant explains that after taking the stamina drug, he could move without limits, which is how he broke into the top 5. Moving on, the assistant gets to the 4th ranked fighter, mentioning he's connected to Chairman Sang Soo-han of the country's largest construction company, Chang Ho-go. Ranked 4th is a fighter specializing in combat taekwondo. He grew up deeply admiring his father, a master of the art, but for some reason, he ended up on a different path. At this, Uyan-cha questions if taekwondo isn't just a sport geared toward competitions. In response, the assistant recalls a documentary that brought together masters of various martial arts to test the speed and power of their kicks. According to him, most of the strikes registered a force between 900 and 15 pounds. However, the capoeira kick reached 19 pounds, which surprised everyone there. Next, the final martial art evaluated in a test was taekwondo. At that moment, the registered impact reached an impressive 23 pounds, leaving Uyan-cha completely shocked. The assistant further adds that Jin-ho is an expert in combat taekwondo and that no one in this wing can match his power. Next, he introduces the 3rd-ranked fighter Ryan, the doping addict brought in by the president of CT Bio. Obsessed with getting stronger, Ryan underwent all kinds of experiments, including having steel fused directly to his bones. With constant drug use affecting his mind, he ended up becoming a mentally unstable fighter. In 2nd place is Tyrell Ma, a currently wanted criminal hired by Dong-soo Park. He surprises Uyan-cha, who can't believe someone like that reached 2nd place. The assistant explains that little is known about this fighter, but there's one thing everyone knows: he's a psychopath who came here just to enjoy the thrill of killing without being caught by the police. His fighting style is so overwhelming that most of his opponents died without even realizing what was happening. Uyan-cha then exclaims that they are all absolute monsters. At this, the assistant states that the real abomination will be the number 1 ranked fighter, the former champion. Hearing this, Uyan-cha starts to ask about who holds the top spot. Before he gets an answer, however, the doors are broken down by a huge man. Surprised, Uyan asks who he is. The newcomer apologizes, explaining he can't control his own strength. This is Kamagurka mercenary and the no 1 ranked fighter. In shock, Uyan-cha yells for a guide. Immediately, drones approach Cam on high alert. Just then another man enters, calling him a fool, and Uyan immediately recognizes him as his brother. Executive Director Uyan-cha asks if he really thought he could beat him here. In response, Uyan-cha reminds him of the bet and tells him to start packing his things. However, Uyan calls him an idiot for putting a student in a bet and involves his position at the company. Uyan reacts immediately to the taunt. His brother then warns him about breaking a certified bet and says he better not ask for help. Later, before leaving, he wishes Uyan fun with the kid he brought and leaves with Cam alone. Uyan-cha fumes with rage. He then yells at his assistant, asking what's being done and ordering him to find someone who can defeat Cam. He then starts to wonder if it's too late, and if the winner isn't supposed to come from the top 5. The assistant replies that the chances are indeed high, but points out that it's not an absolute rule. He explains that the effects of the drugs can be unpredictable, and because of that, some fighters emerge as potential winners from within the top 16. Although this process can take time, he states that's exactly the type of fighter they are looking for. At this, Uyan-cha asks if he has anyone specific in mind. The assistant reveals that in fact, 5 names have already been considered. The first is Ryo Ikika, who will fight Seinu. Besides him, he also mentions Amanda Groch and the judo master Wu Gangju. Continuing, he explains that the other 2 candidates are the very ones who will face each other in the next round. They are the 2 boxing underdogs, Minho Kim and Wenachoi. In the arena, Minho Kim faces Wenachoi already in a fighting stance. He asks his opponent if he knows someone named Minseom Kim. Maintaining his fighting stance, Wenachoi replies, asking how he couldn't know him. This response triggers an intense reaction from Minho Kim. Minho Kim claims he knows his brother and gave up everything to find him. Minho lands a punch straight to Wenachoi's face. He demands to know who he is. Another blow lands squarely, sending his opponent flying back. Wenachoi spits from the force of the impact. Minho grabs him and demands to know why he did it. Then he lands a kick to Wanu's face. The impact throws him violently against the wall. Minho Kim approaches and asks again why he did it, but Wanu, lying on the ground, says that's enough. Minho simply asks what he means. Wonu starts to get up from the floor. He explains that he needs to take a few hits for his drug to kick in. Wonu then says he was wondering if there are different levels for the speed drug. Minho misses a punch and is hit by a kick to the head, then Wonu attacks again. But his opponent dodges. He charges forward, yelling for Minho to get back here. Minho realizes he can't find his weak spot no matter how fast he moves. Wonu reappears in front of him and says it seems his theory is true. But Minho surprises him with a clean punch to the face. Wonu declares that was a punch at maximum speed. Then he grabs Minho's head, who cries out. Minho is thrown far away and rolls across the floor. Wonu states that there's a risk of getting beaten, but the effects of his drug are top-notch. He approaches and tells his opponent to stop moving so the ref can end the fight, and concludes that this leaves him no choice but to kill him. Minho remembers his brother saying that when you think it's over, take one last deep breath. His brother concluded that it would give him one last chance. Minho's heart begins to pound intensely. Wonu Choi leaps back to dodge the sudden attack. Minho lands with force, cracking the ground beneath his feet. Wonu wonders if he also gets stronger after taking damage. Then Minho rushes forward with a powerful punch. Wonu decides he needs to dodge at maximum speed. He throws himself to the side, trying to escape, but Minho intercepts him in midair with a punch. He realizes he can no longer dodge. Minho asks why he killed his brother, then a violent punch hits him square on. The impact sinks Wonu into the ground, which shatters completely. The director of the combat wing reveals that it's the second transformation lying in the crater Wonu Choi coughs. Minho Kim approaches and asks for the last time why he killed his brother. Then Wonu confirms that it's true and that Mensen was murdered. Minho Kim questions how Wonu knows his brother if he isn't the killer. Wonu replies that any boxer would know, the champion with a world record for title defenses, so Minho demands to know who would do such a thing. Wonu starts to explain that there's an addict who only goes after boxing champions, but he passes out before he can finish the sentence. Minho yells for him to say who it is before he blacks out, and the drone announces that Wonu Choi cannot continue. The match ends with Minho Kim's victory, as a notification shows the betting money has increased. Watching on a tablet, Aisha comments that this kid Minho is incredible. The director's assistant notes he underwent a second transformation without drugs, and the director states that the results of his experiments are starting to show. He adds that, although they're not at the level of the first transcendent from 20 years ago, some are reaching 80 of the transformation. The director explains that they've been using the first transcendent's genes as a base since he disappeared. He then wonders where the transcendent went, lamenting his disappearance. Meanwhile, Xiao Kang kicks a door hard. Xiao Kang pushes himself during his training and says he needs to go a little further. Then approaches and asks why he doesn't stop for a bit. Then he questions if Xiao is trying to destroy the place. Menon warns him that if he keeps up this pace, he'll pass out before the match even starts. Xiao states that he needs to be as strong as the monsters in this place. He remembers Yuzik Park explaining that muscles pushed to their limit recover stronger than before, and that the most important factor for muscle recovery is sleep. Yuzik Park advised him to split his day, alternating between training at his limit and getting deep sleep twice. That way he could get stronger twice as fast as others, but he also warned that this would require an incredible recovery ability, just like the one Xianu is back in the present. Xianu pants and says that twice isn't enough. Menon asks if he's going to sleep again. Xianu, however, starts to unstrap the weights from his ankles. Next he drops another set of heavy weights on the floor. Menon yells that he told him to be prepared to die, not to actually kill himself. Xianu then enters a recovery pod. He thinks that this is the third time, and as he was told, he'll trust his recovery speed. Menon comments that he trains intensely 3 times a day, and expects to recover with just 3 naps. He smiles and considers that if Seinu succeeds, things will definitely get interesting around here. The drone approaches and instructs Menon to enter the main arena. He replies that he hopes to get a good opponent this time. Wu Gangju, a judo fighter, lands hard in the arena from a Viet box. Ikian Cha asks if Wu Gang isn't one of the top 5 candidates he was told about. Wyan Cha's assistant explains that he gained extraordinary grip strength from his enhancement drug. He continues saying his grip can crush muscle and bone, making opponents lose the will to fight, but the real danger is his judo skill, which can shatter the bones of anyone he throws to the ground. Ikian Cha asks about Wu Gang's opponent Menon, and comments that being ranked 45th, he's probably not worth much attention. Ayancha's assistant replies that he has no information on him. Leaving Ikian surprised, he explains that it seems Menon was recruited directly by the combat wing, and they have no information on his background or martial arts, and adds that the effect of Menon's drug has not yet been determined. In the arena, Menon licks his own arm as he's announced Wu Gingju is introduced as the 15th ranked fighter and a judo practitioner, and the start of the fight between Wu Gingju and Menon is announced. Wu Ging states there's no need to drag out the fight and that they should end it in one blow. Menon dodges his attack and simply replies sure. He appears behind Wu Ging saying his back is wide open, but Wu Ging suddenly grabs him and declares 1 point. Wu Gingju slams Menon into the ground, which shatters on impact, but it's Wu Ging who ends up hanging from the arena wall. Ikian Cha screams that he was smashed into the ground. Ayancha's assistant says he knew he was good, but didn't expect it to end so quickly. Then the drone announces the match is over. With Wu Gingju unable to continue, Wu Ging's lifeless body falls to the floor. Menon is declared the winner of the match. Ikian Cha asks what just happened and why Wu Ging is in that state. The assistant replies that he has no idea, and that this has never happened before. Lying on the floor, Menon says Seono should be waking up soon, and that he'll check if he's well done or completely burnt. Meanwhile, a recovery capsule opens. Seono wakes up and wonders if his training was a success. He then stands up stating that success or not, he has no choice but to push on. Seono wonders if his mother is truly safe, and if he can trust that woman. He decides he needs to talk to that bastard scout. A drone appears and informs him that he's been summoned by the scout. Ayancha's assistant instructs him to remove the blindfold and says it's good to see him again. Sanu grabs him by the collar and calls him a bastard. The man tells him to calm down, warning that he won't get anything if he dies there, but Sanu retorts that he has nothing to lose and that he better answer straight. He then asks if the man knows where his parents are. The assistant replies that of course he knows, and reveals that he is taking care of them right at this very moment. Sano yells at him not to lie, saying he heard the person in the recovery room talk about getting rid of his parents. The assistant admits the VIP asked him to do it, but he claimed Saonu's parents had disappeared and continued to look after them. The man pushes his hand away and states that he's already bet everything on Saonu, and the VIP will have no choice but to trust his judgment. Sianu starts to say what the woman told him, but the assistant questions if he really thinks the voice in the recovery room belonged to one of his agents. He recounts that Sianu heard about his parents' death the moment he woke up, and right after a woman named Sung Yun visited him. The assistant then asks if he truly believes all of this was just a coincidence. He claims everything she says is a lie, and that's why even her own father kicked her out of the company. To protect his two sons, Salano calls him a fool and insists that woman knew his parents. The assistant asks what proof she showed him, and Salano admits she had none, since nothing is allowed inside. The man then asks how about this. As he rolls up his sleeve, he reveals a message written on his arm that reads, "Son, I'm okay, don't worry about me." Salano immediately recognizes it as his mother's handwriting. The assistant adds that she even wrote the date, so he knows who she was with today. But Salano argues that handwriting can be easily forged. The assistant says the decision to believe is his, but first he'll tell him what he's thinking. He explains that to get his boss interested in Sianu again, he exaggerated his opponent's skills to keep an eye on him. If Sianu beats that person, Director Cha will have no other choice, and all he needs to do is win with them for his problems to be solved. He quickly asks who the next opponent is. Then his opponent, named Ryo Ikaka, enters the arena. Yushingo's assistant points out that Sung Yan isn't interested in winning the championship, only in ruining her brother's plans. He continues, explaining that she has no reason to protect Sianokang's parents, and he warns him that if he doesn't choose to work with them, he won't be able to protect his parents anymore either. Sianok asks himself who he should trust, but he has no time to think about who's telling the truth right now, because it will all be for nothing if he doesn't defeat Ryo Ikaka. From his box, Yuziango says that if Sianu is eliminated, Sun Jin's expression will be memorable. Sun Jin Cha simply replies that they'll see you smiling. At the end of the match, Ryo Ikaka takes his fighting stance in the arena. From his stance, Sian deduces that a calf kick could work against that type of striker. He then moves toward Ryo, but Ryo Ikaka throws a kick first. Sian moves to dodge and counterattack. Ryo, however, grabs his leg. Ryo throws him to the ground and punches him. He then attacks again while Seinu is still down, but Seinu manages to roll away. Escaping the blow, Yushingo was surprised by the ground techniques, as he believed he specialized in striking. His assistant explains that there are no limits to Ryo Ichika's attacks. He details that in Kyudo, they also practice grappling techniques like throws and joint locks. Furthermore, they practice headbutts and groin attacks, which Yushingo considers unfair. The assistant concludes that facing Ryo in close combat is hell, as they use any attack that can be done with bare hands. Back in the arena, the two fighters face off. Ryo Ikaka watches his opponent closely, and he notices that Seinu shows not the slightest bit of fear. Seinu then moves in with a punch. Ryo dodges Sianu's next punch, and he counters with a kick to Xiaonu's body. Xiaonu falls to the ground from the force of the impact. Satisfied, Yuzengo declares that the boy is finally done for Ryo. Ikika notices something and wonders why his opponent is smiling. Down on the ground, Xiaonu just smiles at him. Ryo then charges, yelling that he'll wipe that smile off his face. Xiaonu clings to his opponent, who asks if he really thinks that will work. Ryo warns him that he can use more than just striking techniques, and grabs him, but Xiaonu bites his thigh. Ryo calls him a bastard, then he lands an elbow on Xiaonu's back. He questions if Xiaonu thinks he's some kind of animal. Xiaonu lifts his head and glares at him, then Ryo hits him with a kick to the face. Xiaonu is dragged across the floor by the impact of the blow. Ryo wonders if he allowed his opponent to get to him. He realizes his kick was weak because he couldn't get a good stance as he looks at the wound on his thigh. Ryo then questions if Xiaonu is in fact a beast. Yuzengo, shocked, wonders what the hell is going on. His assistant then comments that Seinu is the one who isn't restricted by any rules. Seinu moves toward Ryo again. Ryo asks if he thinks that's going to work a second time. He wonders if his opponent will bite his leg again. He then prepares to attack, stating he won't fall for that again. But Xiaonu hits him in the head with a kick. Yuzengo identifies the move as capoeira technique. In a flashback, Xiaonu asks Amanda Groch to use some of capoeira's deadliest techniques on him. He then confirms the request. Pointing to himself, Amanda questions him, asking if he's underestimating the power of capoeira. Then she moves toward him and hits him with a kick to the head. Xiaonu falls to the ground from a blow. Amanda then asks if he's realized he has a talent that allows him to copy any technique he's been personally hit with. Back in the present, Xiaonu's kick connects with Ryo's face. Propped on one hand, Xiaonu launches himself upward. Yu Xiangho exclaims that it was a groin kick straight to his face. Ryo grabs his opponent's leg, wondering how anyone can move like that, but Xiaonu hits him with another kick to the head. The blow sends Ryo flying through the air. He lands hard on the arena floor. Xiaonu advances on him again. Xiaonu thinks that his body is moving just as he wants, and that one more calf kick should end the fight. Ryo gets up and takes his fighting stance. He admits he didn't foresee Xiaonu's wild and unpredictable moves, but now he'll treat him like a beast to be hunted. Then Ryo charges toward him. Xiaonu is surprised by how much faster his opponent has suddenly become. He prepares to dodge the punch and counterattack, but Ryo hits him with a headbutt. Xiaonu stumbles back from the impact of the unexpected blow. Ryo then lands a powerful punch to his gut. Xiaonu feels the impact and tells himself to get it together. Ryo grabs him and warns him that he won't have any organs left after this. He then unleashes a series of punches to Xiaonu's body. Ryo prepares to finish the fight, and he lands a final kick to his opponent's body. Ryo concludes that he's unconscious and the fight is over. Yuzengo celebrates, yelling that it's over for Seian and Sung Yan. But Sung Yan states that this isn't the end if what she's heard is true. Xiaonu suddenly grabs Ryo's arm, who is surprised he's regained consciousness. Ryo says it won't make a difference and prepares to attack, but Xiaonu hits him with a headbutt. Ryo wonders if his opponent also practiced headbutts. Then Xiaonu moves toward him. Ryo thinks he now moves more like a monster than a beast, but he's confident he hit his organs. He believes this is a side effect of the drugs and that he just needs to block one attack to counter, and when Xiaonu lunges forward with a kick, Ryo manages to grab his leg. He then yells that he's got him, but Xiaonu rips a piece of his own pants. Surprising Ryo, the fabric covers Ryo's face, who yells that he can't see. Xiaonu then attacks his opponent while his vision is blocked. Ryo decides that if he can't dodge the attack, he'll just endure it. Xiaonu's kick lands squarely on his opponent's leg, but as he falls, Ryo manages to land a kick on Xiaonu's leg as well. Yuzengo yells that his leg is completely broken. Xiaonu grabs him and Ryo wonders how he can still move. Then Ryo says that unfortunately, this is going to finish him. Xiaonu then lands one more kick on Ryo's other leg. As Ryo and Xiaonu fall to the arena floor, a voice announces that Ryo Ikika is unable to continue the battle. Then the winner of the match is declared to be Xiaonu King. Yuzengo reacts with frustration to the result, but Sung Yangcha comments that this is exactly why she likes him. Yuzengo then points out that Xiaonu is also unconscious, and questions if they aren't both unable to fight. Yuzengo's assistant replies that he doesn't believe that's the case. He explains that at the moment, Xiaonu is just sleeping. Sunjin states that, however, now is not the time for him to be sleeping. She observes on a screen that just as she imagined, people aren't really betting on him. Her assistant explains that no one would bet on an injured fighter, and that the top 16 will be decided by the money wager. He shows that Seinu is in last place, and warns that if the top 16 are announced before Seinu wakes up, he might not get a chance to pick a VVIP, suggesting she look for another fighter. Sung Yun then asks how much money she currently has available, which surprises her assistant. She states that if the problem is people aren't betting on him, she'll solve it herself. Song Yeon-cha declares that she just needs to push him to the top. With her money, her assistant worries that she might lose all her money, but she cuts him off saying she's starting. A drone announces a briefing for the next round and summons the 31 players who won. Several drones then fly over the fighters gathered in the arena. Minho Kim looks at Sao Nu, who is still down on the floor. He wonders if he shouldn't wake him up before the briefing begins. On a large screen, a figure welcomes the 31 winners of the previous round and also the 16 VVIPs who will be joining them. Several VVIPs, including Sung Yeon-cha, are then shown in their private boxes. The figure announces that the top 16 will be determined by the amount bet on each player. Then a timer starts counting down, giving them 30 more seconds to place their final bets. Sung Yeon asks what the difference is between the bets on Seonu and the 16th ranked player. Her assistant replies that the difference is 2 billion won and will likely increase in the final seconds. She then orders him to bet all the money she has on Seonu. Right at that moment he warns her that it's 4 billion won. Now it will all be wasted if Seonu doesn't make the top 16. The assistant insists that she needs to give up on Seonu and bet on another fighter right now, but Song Yeon-cha calmly tells him to bet it all. He then questions her about why she's doing all this. She turns and yells at him to place the bet now. The time for betting runs out. Back in the private box, the two await the results. The assistant reports that he transferred all the money as she requested. He reminds her she's already spent a lot to control her brothers and asks why she's risking it all. Song Yeon simply asks what the current betting rank is. Her assistant explains that the rankings were hidden when the countdown began. She then concludes that they'll have to wait for the official announcement. The figure on the screen announces that they will now reveal the new rankings and informs them that they'll start by announcing the top 5. The screen reveals that Cam Ryan, Jiang Ho go left and T Rim are the top 5. Minho Kim reacts with surprise at the ranking. Minho Kim observes that there are still some boxers left. The figure on the screen announces they will reveal the next 5 rankings. The screen shows that Wooking Ju, Amanda Grok, Yu Xian Ho, Kendall and Menon are ranked from 6th to 10th. Seeing that Amanda is 7th, Minho wonders if you won't make the cut. The announcer then proceeds to the next 5 names. The screen reveals that Miguel Bishop, Sungbum Carl and Ricardo are ranked from 11th to 15th. Sung Yeon-cha's assistant points out nervously that there's only one spot left. The figure on the screen prepares to announce the 16th ranked player. He reveals the total bet was 4.6 billion won and describes him as the former street fighter. The screen then shows Bon Chol-gu as the 16th ranked fighter. Sung Yeon's assistant reacts with shock to the final result.